Conspiracies, government cover-ups, Earth mysteries, monster cryptids.
Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV, and welcome to this, the 83rd reply to comments video, the video in which I get to reply to your comments. I'm sorry I couldn't think of a more original title. The reason I make these videos is because I get a lot of comments on my very popular channel, and some of these comments are very well thought out. People go to a lot of effort or the time to say what they think, to give me feedback, and I feel very, very obliged. I'm very, very grateful to those people and obliged to reply, but I don't have time to reply by text. And you may think, well, that's not good enough then, just make it a comments reply video to reply to a comment. Oh, goodness me. I only made one comment, I want to reply to it. I'm not going to watch a 9-hour video for that. Well, first of all, you don't have to, because underneath the comment that I'm replying to, I will put a timestamp. For example, in the first hour of this video, I'll put a timestamp saying, thanks for your comment. It will be answered approximately within the first hour of the upcoming reply to comments video. That'll be a comment it'll be my reply to your comment I'm replying to, you see. And after an hour's gone past, it'll be the second hour, third hour, fourth hour, etc. So the longest you'll have to wait for is 1 hour to listen to my reply to your comment. Secondly, let's face it, my comments reply videos are not 9 hours anymore. They're much shorter because I do them more often. I try to do them every 2 to 3 weeks. I used to do them every 2 months. So there. And now another reason I make these comments reply videos is because I enjoy doing them. I think that some of them are very good. They're some of my best videos. And what's more, you, the viewers, a lot of you enjoy them too. And I know some of you watch them all the way through. So, with that being said, let us begin with the previous. I'll go back to the end of the last set of comments, the videos when I stopped replying to. Oh, forget, you know what I mean. I've gone back down my list of comments until I find one I didn't reply to. Basically, after I uploaded the last reply to comments video. Bernie Tucker says on Awakening Expo 2023, thanks for all the great films over the last months, Ben. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Bernie. Oh, cheers, Bernie. You're very welcome. I'm glad you appreciate my contribution. Same video, Tessa1111. If the UFOs stroke UAP aliens are stealing or trading items for bits of our DNA, they may not know that DNA that DNA can influence them and their thoughts. Many humans who've had transplants report changes in their thinking, dietary desires, etc. First, I don't think the aliens are really trading anything, Tessa, because, as I've said on previous videos, in a negotiating position, humans wouldn't have much to bring to the table. Aliens don't need their permission, so they don't need our permission to abduct us. They've been doing it for a very long time without our consent, and they don't need to come to us. Oh, please let us do it, humans. We'll give you this in exchange. They just do it. See, that's one of the reasons for the truth embargo, is the government don't want to admit that this is going on and they can't do anything to stop it. As for the interesting thing is what you talk about, the transplants and the DNA. I don't know if the aliens are aware of this or not, but what you say is very, very interesting. In fact, several authors that I study have mentioned this. They've mentioned that people experience changes of personality after they've had a transplanted organ. And very, very often when they find out who the organ came from, and it can be done, under special circumstances. Normally, these things are held anonymous, but it can be done under certain circumstances, promotional programs and things like that. They realise, for example, a person who was scared of heights suddenly finds that they love mountaineering. Somebody who couldn't draw to save their life suddenly picks up a pencil and paper and starts drawing. Things like creating wonderful works of art, things like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's and it could. What is probably likely is that some of the nervous system within that organ is meshing with our own nervous system and therefore causing that, and which is very interesting. It indicates that the nervous system is not just the brain, and the nerves that go through our body are just there to operate the body. It appears that whatever element was within our brain that causes us to have certain personalities, thoughts, and feelings exists within the rest of the nervous system. Yeah, very interesting that, yeah. So I don't know if the aliens are aware of that. Reply to comments 82. Stephen Truthseeker says, first, well done, Stephen. You get the tinfoil hat this week. Gary Robinson says here, tinfoil hat's on its way, mate. Yeah, enjoy it. Wear it with pride. Same video. Popcorn boxing. Third. Or you get a bronze tinfoil hat then, popcorn boxing. Will that do? Stephen said, third is a poor second. Better luck next time. Popcorn boxing says, thanks. 82, Stephen Truthseeker, who says here, you're talking Star Wars. Well, we do talk about Star Wars a lot, Stephen, yeah, especially with Gary Robinson. Hasn't Mark Hamill been switched, and they blamed his changed looks on a car crash or road accident that he had left him having to have serious surgery? Gary Robinson says underneath here. Gary, of course, is he works very closely with the music industry, through the film industry, through his music work. He's composed scores and things like this, so he knows a lot about these sorts of things. The official story is that he crashed his car after the filming of the first Star Wars movie. It was a couple more years before the film was released, and another couple of years before they began filming Empire Strikes Back, by which time the claim is that his face was different because he'd had surgery, which had eventually settled down, giving him a slightly different face. This is why they wrote the Ice Wampa scene into The Empire Strikes Back, so they could explain his damaged face. They also filmed a scene where he had a cloth thing covering half his face, but that wasn't cut from the movie. Cheers. Really, Gary? Now, I didn't know that the whole Wampa thing was just for that reason, because, of course, Luke is on Hoth, and he gets lost out in the wilderness of Hoth. Hoth is a very cold country. It's a very cold planet, which is very low temperature. There's no surface water, just ice and snow. And it's actually filmed in northern Norway, or somewhere in the highlands of Norway. Of course, he suffers from frostbite and he's attacked by the Wampa. This was his creature. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that was written in for that reason, though. I really didn't. But yeah, I'm glad he was okay anyway, because if he died, I mean, it probably wouldn't have worked if they recast him. Stephen Truthseeker says in reply to comments 82, what is Mumbling trying to prove? Well, not a lot at the moment, Stephen, because he doesn't seem to be very keen to take up my debate challenge. David Splendid Isolation says underneath that his denialist belief and worldview is correct. He's not a genuine skeptic, because that he's the sort that has made up his mind from the start and then has unwavering, acceptable and unacceptable conclusions. Pseudo-skeptics claim to be skeptics, but they're disingenuous for the above reason. That's true, David, yeah. John Nolan says that says in reply to what he's trying to prove that he's clever. Stephen, he's got a hard job then. Has he heard of the Drake equation? Well, he has, Stephen, but he just doesn't. He doesn't really believe. I don't know. I think he may believe that there's ET in the universe, but he doesn't believe it's reached us. It's a long way away. Excuse me. I mean, what I'll do is, this is something I'll bring up if I ever get him to the debating table. That's something I'll bring up. For those of you who haven't heard my updates. After Steve was talking about a live debate, I said I wasn't going to do it, but then I changed my mind. I thought, yes, I will do it if we agree to leave the moon landings out of it, because we've done the moon landings. Let's talk about other subjects. Stephen Truthseeker says in reply to comments 82, someone's resignation letter proves there's no ETs in the universe? ? I think you're talking about Lou Elizondo. It doesn't, no. It doesn't prove that at all. This was this thing by Stephen Greenstreet. This was one. He had 3 different resignation letters. Which was the real one, etc., etc. No, it doesn't prove anything. I mean, he has published a letter which he says was his resignation letter. It appears to be that he published one formal one, which is very, very brief and to the point, and he published several informal resignation letters that were much more detailed and went into principles and reasons of why he quit. Turns out, though, they were informal ones. But I mean, I don't see why that's a big deal, actually. But I think some people originally have an a priori assumption that Lou Elizondo was a shill, and nothing will change their minds, I don't think. Reply to comments 82. Native Texan 170. Howdy doody. He says, hey, I'm here from Texas. How you all doing over there? Well, we had a nice thunderstorm this afternoon. Sorry, I won't do the accent. Sorry, I don't want to take the mickey. We had a nice thunderstorm this afternoon. First bit of rain since May. Still thundering, and now it's night time. I love it when there's a nice thunderstorm at night. Me too, native Texan, yeah. We only got up to 102 degrees. Woo, that's cool, that's chilly. With a nice little thunderstorm, it's cool 82 degrees now. Well, take care from Texas. Y'all ready for this? Oh, thank you, native Texan. Thanks for posting. I'm glad you it's not so hot there where you are. Donna Williams says, all good, thanks. Gary Robinson, ever been to Del Rio, Texas? Native says, no sir, another name please. And Dolan Wetham says, very glad to hear. Oh, so thanks very much, guys. Now we have Mrs. Balloons, who says here on reply to comments 82. Ben, thanks for caring for Steve Mumbling. I don't think he's bad, maybe too passionate about being right. It's more important to be understanding of others than be right in a debate. You're a gem. Oh, thanks for Mrs. Balloons. I do want to be understanding of him, and I'm willing to debate him and concede any points that I can't answer. Yeah, but if I'd like him to, but I'd just set one condition, and I'd like him to go along with that. And you know what he's doing now? He's now not replied to me. He's not replied to my emails. When I last checked them yesterday, he hadn't replied. Things like that. Shelley Northwest. Hey, Shelley, how you doing? Hi, Mrs. Balloons. That's me addressing Mumbling. Yes, that wasn't about today's cancel culture and trying to call him out a hit on Mumbling. Trying to call out a hit on Mumbling. I opposed that stuff, Marxism. I was telling him he has duties to Ben, not to try and conquer. I think family is a good, just not smearing and battering. I kind of don't know if Steve realises he likes Ben. I think he does deep down. We're kind of like, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship, I think, Shelley. I think I like him, really, yeah. That there are reasons not to smear him, or the space in general. That's in capitals. Even if Ben does okay, this shit may have been more bearable 10 years ago, but we all have twice the load of oppression, fear and stress coming from the system all around us. I'm just thinking about Mumbling. I'm just thinking Mumbling should take some stock and come in with duties and appreciation for what he has. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, Shelley. I mean, I know you and I have been discussing this privately, and I know you know he's. A lot of people have said to me, why don't you just block Steve Mumbling, block him, but I mean, he's not done anything. I've had to delete one of his posts once, but he's not done anything really that warrants a blocking. He disagrees, and I think I could teach people an awful lot by. I think I could teach the viewers a lot in a discussion with him. No doubt he will say the same for his own. On his own channel, and one of the conditions of our debate is the video recording would be free to be uploaded to both channels. And Shelley says here on 82, good day, Ben. This will be a pinch long, my pardons. That's alright, Shelley, no problem. About Mr. Demoralising Mumbling. That was me being triggered by what I see as his degradation of people of which he seems unaware. It's not me thinking that you allow him to walk on you, but rather my being disturbed that he seems to find it okay. I understood, Shelley. Understood. I've got a very thick skin, and if you've watched my video where I'm confronting Droik, you'll know exactly know exactly why that is. I grew up watching a boy getting thrashed by his dad, and the boy later took his life. Oh, that's horrible, Shelley. I'm sorry. That really is. This stuff just angers me, particularly when it's done in another house, quote unquote, who is good enough to welcome us. Then David normalising the smears while thinking his politics are good quality. None of this more immediate demoralisation, also in the video, so he can't be ignored, is also what those of us fighting against the tides have been going through most of our lives. So it's easy for them to take the status quo and hide their shit behind it. Shelley, I'm going to have some good answers for David. I think you mean David Smith. I'm going to have some good answers for him later, because he does try to persuade me of something and doesn't succeed. It's horrible. I mean, like when you're a kid, and where you're very vulnerable and you can't really do anything to protect yourself. And I've talked before about Centaur and how I felt when I was being abused by this guy Centaur, and not just the fact he was abusing me. It was my parents' indifference has haunted me for my entire life. But it's some people cope with it in different ways. This is how I deal with it. Anyway, please don't think I was questioning you for not banning them, etc. No problem, Shelley, understood. They have their place in my words, however, they might be wise to figure out they've been welcomed in by you, the development that takes. Well, I hope so. I hope they realise that, Shelley. I'm sure a lot of people I know have blocked Mumbling. People I know have blocked him because he questions them. I know he's got a very abrasive tone, but like I said, it's nothing compared to what other people have done. And I notice you have something they lack, but perhaps need. There's only so much family to go around anymore. Maybe they could learn to respect the space itself. These remarks show a need for them to realise what this is mentally, what their minds aren't doing, mental boundaries for themselves. Who cares if they can argue? They can rein in their minds from normalising insults and ad homs. Okay, sorry to be long here, and sorry you came in the middle of a bit here. Thanks for opening your channel up to comments and engaging so much. You're welcome, Shelley, and you're one of my best commentators. We've known each other for a long time on YouTube, and now it's good to. We've known each other for a long time on Odyssey. It's good to see you here on YouTube as well. Maybe they just. Some of them don't have any friends. I think I've got friends. I've got people who like me, and I like them, and some people don't have that sometimes it's their own attitude that's done it. And Shelley says on reply to comments 82, Vedmore is grieving, but he will be okay. Right, that refers to something we discussed privately. I know, so I'm glad that's good. I hope he'll be all right. Yeah. Okay, now we have a debate, between Shelley Northwest and David Smith. So it's interesting to see. Shelley says here, she opens with this. Let me just timestamp. What happened to the timestamp? There it is. Shelley opens with, David, your Marxism is straight out of the early mind control ops. Nothing about it will align your mind with the natural laws governing us, producing a natural harmony and order. Sad though, because what Marxism does offer is an escape from the soul, which, if you ask me, is why it's addictive. It could be, Shelley, and one thing that's common among all Marxists, I think, is the atheism, the atheo-skeptico-materialism. It all dates back to Karl Marx's famous quote, religion is an opium of the people, a sigh of an oppressed, the spirit of a godless world. Let me get the whole quote. But this is one of his most famous quotes here. Karl Marx, opium fürs Volk. Opium the people. Yeah, it's opium. It's a bit of an MBA statement. Yeah, it's religion is the opiate of the mass. Religion. Here we go. Religion is the opiate of the masses. It's the sigh of the. Oh yeah, the entire quote. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. It's actually a very, it's a very MBA thing to say. Shelley, if you've been watching my channel for a long time, I think you'll know what I mean by MBA, and David certainly does. Opium, in a sense, it says, well, because there's something we want in life and can't have, the pain of not having it, we drown out with drugs. That's what Karl Marx was essentially saying. But, of course, you can argue the opposite, and I think, Shelley, you are arguing the opposite, which is very astute of you, and I do in my Skeptic video, which you may have seen if you like this channel. There's several different versions of it, so you've probably seen it. It's used as escapism, this is Shelley talking now. It's used as escapism following feelings into a consciousless pit where anything goes except what the police state stops. Yeah, exactly. It's essentially materialism also releases people from various. There's never been a full. Shelley, there has never. I don't know if you agree, but I think there's never been a complete ethical framework within materialism. And there's many materialists and moral nihilists. She says, you can't have Marxism without heavily regulated police state to dole out the scraps. That's right. I know that in Marxism, the Marxists believe that in a post-socialist world, the state would wither away. They talk about the state withering away, but the mechanism how that happens is really not explained in adequate detail, and it's never actually happened in any of the Marxist states that have been attempted. And Marxists have so many reasons. They come up with all kinds of rationalities for that, like, but the Soviet Union wasn't real Marxism, the Soviet Union was isolated, it didn't spread to the rest of the world, and things like that. But at some point, you've got to ask yourself, like, have you actually got your fundamentals of your theory right? I'd say to the Marxists. Indeed I do, because some of them watch me. Shelley says, look around at the chaos happening as people try to adopt these mind viruses. People are not the centre of the universe where they can go as they will. This is a tool of our enemies who willfully are trying to collapse our countries and world. Yeah, basically, you can choose to discover these things by going back a bit to study, say, Dr. John Coleman or Anthony Sutton. Oh, no, very good. Both of them very good. The Committee of 300, Shelley. Yeah, Anthony Sutton, of course, discovered that the whole Cold War was a sham. And they document the PSYOP engineering plans they planned via the Committee of 300 and American banks, Solomon and Cromwell. It's sitting right there for you, but it means letting go of using that system for personal escapism, the Soma, as Huxley explained. Yeah, and that's right, there was this drug, wasn't there, in Brave New World? And this comes up several times. I mean, there's a Soma in Blake 7, I remember, adrenaline and Soma. This drug that they take in Blake 7, yeah. Of course, one way of looking at this is that New World Order goons are targeting the weakest minds in a warped game of the strongest surviving. The people you've adopted aren't creating a strong world. They're just feeding their passions, but can't respect anyone or anything that gets in the way of these addictions and madness. That's a very... Shelley, you've put it very well. You really, really have. Yeah. You seem to be quite aware of a lot of these things. Shelley also adds here, flooding a country with people that care nothing about your culture or rights have nothing to do with utopia. This is dangerous. What the WEF wants is not beauty. You ought to seek the situational awareness and honesty more than adopting opinions just because you can. Govern your mind. Well, take some feedback. Yeah, I mean, the whole... This ties back to what I said in the previous reply to comments about the immigration agenda, which, of course, is not about creating a utopia. It's about about creating a world without nations, basically. A world without nation. I think that's what it's fundamentally about. It also has a demoralising effect on the population. David is not to be defeated so easily. He replies here. Nice false dichotomy. Do you always not reply to people using their names in the hope that they don't see it and can make a response? How very honest of you. Can you demonstrate the soul exists? David, I think what the point he's making here is that Shelley basically has an opening post addressing David rather than replying to him, hoping he won't see it. Well, that doesn't make sense, David, because Shelley is quite keen to engage with people at all times. She doesn't avoid confrontation, and she certainly doesn't avoid interaction. So much of what you comment makes absolutely no sense to anyone who doesn't simply believe as you do. Hang on a sec. Demonstrate the soul exists. David, have you seen my videos on that? Have you seen soul searching? Have you seen testing God? I mean, I do review these things, and I've made videos of them. So, David, have you seen those videos? I'll find some to recommend otherwise. To be honest, I made so many videos, probably I've forgotten some of them. I really have. She says it only makes sense to people. It makes sense to no one except people who simply believe as you do. David, I can't comment on what makes sense to you and what does not, because David, you alone are qualified to comment on that. But I mean, I can't either, because I do share a lot of Shelley's opinions. But, other people may. I think Shelley was perfectly comprehensive, and she uses a few citations and things like that. But anyway, here we go. Like a religious text, you need to believe it before accepting it. And I have no idea what comment you're replying to. It's difficult for me to fully engage, but rest assured, The type of government I'm in favour of will be a lot smaller than any capitalist system needs. Well, I'm in favour of... Yeah, I'm very much a libertarian, David. But capitalism, you see, is essentially a... unregulated capitalism actually would preclude the need for a state, which is ironic. Capitalism requires armies, police, enforcement of laws, and for the purpose of keeping inequality rife. That's not true, David. Capitalism does not require that. Capitalism actually, these things actually are necessary for the regulation of capitalism. Inequality emerges out of that regulation, not out of capitalism itself. And when you say inequality, I think if you mean by inequality you mean poverty and degradation and suffering, then that's not caused by capitalism. It's not it's not in the interests of capitalism to have people in pain, poor, and unable to purchase the goods that you're producing. It's true that capitalism does inevitably result in a hierarchy. There'll be some people better off than some people are richer than others, but that's actually, I think that's natural, and I'll come on to that later because you've actually said some very interesting things in a very recent comment, which includes links to some videos, which I want to come on to. But the poverty and inequality is actually caused by the regulation, not by the capitalism itself. And it says it's required for the false assumption of positive competition, which is funny because people like you talk about harmony. No, this is a bit like the debate between Stefan Molyneux and Peter Joseph, which is very amusing. And Joseph is completely wrong. A capitalistic world would be in harmony. Socialists are always saying, "Well, we've never had real socialism." But I say we've never had real capitalism. We've had what Molyneux calls crapitalism, corporate feudalism. It's not the same thing as capitalism. The mind viruses I see are people thinking if they just work hard enough, they too can become wealthy. Well, they can't always. If you're going to become rich, you have to be able to work hard. This doesn't mean everyone who works hard is going to become wealthy. No. But that's not a mind virus. That's just a fact. The few that do make it via hard work and luck are quick to discount their luck and other variables beyond their control. Hence, we get the egoism. David, I have to agree somewhat with you there. Yes, there are some people, of course, who are just lucky. They build the product that people happen to want at the right time, things like that, and they become very wealthy. And there is an element of luck to it. They write a book, for example. The things I'm sort of experiencing that luck a bit because I've written a book, which I didn't know at the time, but now appears to be in a position where it's going to become very successful. And the reason I predict that is not because of my egoism. It's because I finished those books. I finished writing the Roswell trilogy in 2017. And then we had the new ufology era. So I didn't know how hot that iron would be when I struck it. You see what I mean? But I'm not going to deny there's an element of luck there. Then they join in the chorus of denouncing anyone who fails to make it as lazy and lacking dedication. Unfit to join the upper echelons of our great system. It's like a religious cult. Well, David, I know some people do. There are some rich people who do look down their nose at people who just don't make it as lazy and lacking in dedication. I know that. But, I generally find that very wealthy people are actually a lot more generous and a lot more aware than much of the middle classes, for example. I find most of the hostility towards my social demographic, my socio-economic demographic, come from the sort of left-wing middle class, not from the aristocracy, not from the millionaire set. They're the ones who hate the white working class. It's not the big top. The bigwigs. It teaches us to ignore the reality of inequality and justifies the suffering needed. Now, firstly, if people are like that and they see people suffering and they just say, well, it's their fault, I agree with you. But you see, if you and I disagree on the fundamental cause of that suffering, it justifies the suffering needed because without a labour pool on standby full of desperate people fighting for work to provide the basics of life, capitalism can't function. David, it's not capitalism, it's regulated corporate feudalism. It's not capitalism. But you're right, there is a labour pool of people, like you say, desperate people fighting for work, people dependent on the state system, yes. The state needs that. The state needs people dependent. The state needs people constantly fighting for existence, struggling to put the next meal on the table. So then they're so focused on that they don't think about anything else. And then when the state comes forward and says we'll give you benefits and things like that, or we'll help you out, they're forced essentially through structural violence to agree. The system is authoritarian by design, but people like you seem to enjoy it, then invent and direct your paranoia in the wrong direction. No, I don't enjoy authoritarianism. I don't think Shelley does. I'm anti-authoritarian. I'll come on to that later in a future comment you make. And I don't think it's paranoid, you see, and I think maybe we disagree on the fundamental causes of this pathology. Davis carries on with Shelley. You keep trying to take the high ground and then use vacuous statements like flooding a country. I don't think. I mean, flooding a country is an emotive way of putting it, but it's accurate when you consider the system we're on now. If it's not, okay, if you disagree, then tell us, when is the mass immigration going to stop? When will it stop? If it's not stop, shows no sign of slowing down. There's nothing in the future on the horizon that appears to be waiting to create a stop, poised to provide a stopping of this flood. All right, the dam is burst. There's no little Dutch boy to put his finger in the dike. Flooding is a metaphor that is perfectly adequate. I mean, and you see, there's no exit. There's no exit strategy from this situation. You see what I mean? Do you really not see how you're being manipulated? Why did you use that word? It's an emotive word, but it's an emotive. It's a metaphor. Yeah, it's an analogy, David. You should think about things a bit more. Oh, that's demeaning. Well, why don't you think about things a bit more? Like, oh, you haven't thought these over. Cultures change over time. There's nothing you can do about that unless you want to be authoritarian, something you said you're against. Yes, cultures change over time, and all world's cultures are going to be influenced by the fact we now have a level of communication and travel that we've never had before. The invention of telephones, the internet, aeroplanes, and even before that, ocean-going ships, means that, yes, people across the world are going to meet each other when they wouldn't have otherwise. That's true, but what we're looking at here is not a natural cultural shift. What we're looking at here is something enforced from the top down, David. It's different. If the world wasn't as messed up as it is by capitalism, and it's not messed up by capitalism, by inequality, by lack of critical thinking. Firstly, inequality meaning, if you mean poverty and suffering and degradation, and but if you mean inequality, like doesn't literally mean that. It just means not everyone's the same, and people are not all the same. But if you mean by poverty and degradation, then yeah, I share your concern about that. Lack of critical thinking. Well, there are people who think, yes, a lack of critical thinking, yes. By the pushing of agendas and conspiracy theories that have the power to destabilise societies. Well, the agenda, it's actually the conspiracy theories that are trying to stabilise the destabilisation that have been imposed by the deep state. Conspiracy theories are exposing that destabilisation to as many people willing to listen and trying to find a solution to that. Dismissal of science. Well, that's not me. Not scientists, but the evidence at our disposal. Well, the dismissal of science, well, people keep saying trust the science, but if your conclusion comes scientifically to the wrong answer, such as climate change is not caused by carbon emissions, aliens are not the spaceships, the objects you see in the sky are not weather balloons, etc., etc. No, that's wrong, and the scientists who say that get turfed out of whatever they are. Now that's a dismissal of science. If the world was better, there would be no need for people to move around so much and fear cultural change. I don't understand that bit really. If the world was better, there'd be no need for people to move around. Oh, if you mean people driven by poverty in one geographical location will move to another, but it's that situation essentially that is engineering, which is like the fuel for what is being done deliberately anyway. You would not have a population shift on this scale without it being organised. For this number of people in such a short period of time wouldn't happen. I don't care if my culture changes, if it's an improvement. If it's some religious type mentality, then that would be a shame, but the problems need to be solved, not ignored and put in a conspiracy theory so they never get addressed. Well, if the thing is, cultures will, like I say, if it's a natural shift, a cultural shift, that's inevitable. It's happened before; it'll happen again. It's. Also, I've got a good example actually. This Welsh nationalists. I mean, because I'm a big critic of Welsh nationalism. And the nationalism of the other so-called Celtic, so-called and wrongly called Celtic countries. All right, Hugo Rune, I know. They use words like Anglo-Saxon invaders. They'll say things like, "Well, England only exists because of Anglo-Saxon invaders." What they don't realise, and nobody realised until it was possible to test the DNA in graves at places like Sutton Hoo, was that Anglo-Saxons were not invaders. Anglo-Saxons were descended from indigenous population stock. They adopted a new language and culture, which has similarities to that on the continent. For example, English is a Germanic language, so it's closely related to German, Dutch, and the prototypes of those in the early Middle Ages, the proto-languages. But it was something that we did willingly and naturally. It was not an invasion. And then that's when the Scottish and Welsh nationalists get arsey, because then it destroys their foundational myth that somehow there is a racial difference between the Scots and Welsh and the English, when there's not. That they're the real Britons and everyone else is like, they came over a few centuries ago from Germany. But that's a perfect example of what I mean by a natural cultural shift, a cultural change. I don't oppose that, David. It would be authoritarian to oppose that kind of cultural change, yes. Shelley says here, "You're not going to argue your way out of character issues, David. It's character. Every post I've seen of yours opens without boundary, then asserts authority. And not of a point, but Ben himself. Then you spiral on anything he says, cycling back to your authority without checking your character, as defined in circles that check their personal ideologies, not the circles that excuse them using politics and the state to do it. Don't argue with me, David. If you want to begin with how you use Ben for your own whims, then misrepresent him, then do all the gaslighting and mental spirals as if the mind has no need for structure and truth." That's a very eloquent way of putting it, Shelley, but I appreciate your support here. As you may have noticed, I've been calling David out on that as well. If you want to grow up, then you can accept a break. But dude, right now you're in my shit lib box. David, you asked for this. You're the one who went ad hominem. Don't expect what you refuse others. Get yourself a codependency book, because you try to get people down in the mire with you. No, you need to step up. Get a codependency book, biases book, and learn logical debate. Yeah. Well, I mean, Shelley, that's what I'm kind of trying to teach him, I think. Because what you're doing is simply gaslighting, and that is a problem. I'll leave you with that, David. A black fucking eye. Of course, David will point out there's a lot of rhetoric and ad hominem in what Shelley said, but Shelley was kind of responding to you there, David, in kind. Reply to comments 82. "Hey Ben, a small white spherical object the small white spherical object I saw a few weeks ago was indeed in the daytime around 2 p.m. I think. I was sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, having a break from the computer. Cheers." All right, Dave. Gary, that's right. I remember asking you a question about that. Yeah. And he says, "P.S. In terms of movement, it was very smooth and travelling in a straight line with no deviation. And I got the impression it was travelling at high speed." Right. Interesting, David. I mean, I know we've discussed this privately, and you've stated where you live. I'm not going to dox you in that sense, because I know you're in Britain at the moment. I'll have a look and see if I can see any other people who reported a sighting, because a white spherical object is what I saw. Gary says on 82. "In regards to what you were saying about YouTube fixing things that don't need to be fixed, I'm still fairly convinced this is due to the nature of development environments, where they have to find something for the web developers to do in order to justify their salaries." Cheers. Wouldn't be surprised. It's like the guy. I mean, there's this classic. He was actually a character in a book. He went around emptying dustbins onto the streets, and they said, "Why are you doing that?" He says, "Oh, my uncle is a street sweeper. I've got to provide plenty of work for him." What's the classic one is breaking windows creates economic growth. So you go around smashing windows because that keeps the glaziers in business. Oh, we have Shelley. Where are we now? Oh, Shelley confronting Droik. Yeah, right. I did advise that Shelley should watch this because it just explains why I'm not as bothered by some of these people Shelley's bothered by. Okay, let me look what happened here. Yeah, I get triggered by these guys. It's sometimes why I prefer to hang out where they aren't around, like your Odyssey. I'll try not to mention it much and weigh down your comments with what's kind of my stuff. I find myself getting angry or mean. If I find myself getting angry or mean, I'll hang out on Odyssey or go do something else for some time. Thanks for taking my comments. Okay, let me see here. You're a good influence on me. Oh, thanks, Shelley. And I know we've been discussing things privately. You did ask me to read a letter before I did this comments reply video, and I have done that. I haven't actually replied privately to you yet. Shelley says, "Oh dear, you got a bad one there. Yes, very important to mount a fight if you can. Then the nervous system can discharge the dark energy he was dumping on you." I do feel that weight lifting from me, Shelley. That's a guy that was brutalised and made to go into constant freeze mode just to survive. I expect he was. I wouldn't like to be a fly on the wall in his, when he was a little kid at home. People can heal from this, but he clearly hasn't found recovery sources. He must have been trying to release his trauma covertly and found your strength and rigour a reminder of what he lost via another's brutality to him as a child. Maybe, Shelley. People respond to things differently in different ways. I understand what childhood humiliation is like, and because I myself was brutalised. I don't know if it's to the extent that this person was, but I was brutalised, and what's more, I was upset by my parents were in denial about it as well. And people react differently to it in different ways. A lot of people do simply try to pass their feelings on to other people. They try to relieve themselves of this by doing exactly the same thing to other people. So someone who's bullied as a child often becomes a bully at school. They pick on other smaller children. When they grow up, they bully their children. They bully their own children. They bully their wife. They bully their dogs and cats and things. Yeah. I myself have tried to find another way out of this. I bet Droik was the person you mentioned at the end, the one you knew and had sat with on occasion. It was, Shelley. I found out through contacts in the David Icke forum, the original David Icke forum. They tried to explain this to me, and I didn't really accept it because I wanted to believe when I first started going to the meetups in 2007 that I found a community where that sort of thing just didn't happen. I wanted to believe they were all good people, and they weren't. My guess is it takes some in-person internalising of your strength for him to have really gotten so serious about you. Maybe it's because I'm handling my own degradation differently to how he handled his. Maybe his was longer term and more serious than mine. I don't know. Like he was trying to push away a real world situation with much more vividness attached to it, not just pestering a random guy on the net. I bet that was a destined thing to almost like your paths would cross, possibly helping him to see his issues and sort them out. Well, I don't feel if he suffered in any way, I take no satisfaction from that, Shelley. And you're being very perceptive here. You really are. You will need to look up this Stephen Hicks video, dude. You'll like it, right down to being targeted as a parent. This is huge, but seldom very conscious to us. Wokeism is fragility, loathing the strong and stable. Yeah, it's somebody actually said this. Someone else said that it's the weak. It's a kind of like it's a reaction to being weak and inferior, to try and overpower stronger and more stable people with tricks. It's also dark energy fearing the light, because everyone is under contract to resurrect their minds from the dark or the matrix. Yeah, I mean, I don't know this idea we choose our lives. I mean, I do believe we have multiple lives. I believe in reincarnation. There is evidence for that. Why? Again, I said, why would I? If I could choose my life, why would I choose this life? Why would I choose to? I think David Aronovich puts it very well in his book, The Party Animals. He said he was born at a 90-degree angle to everyone else, and I feel the same way. Yeah. Shelley says there is no cheating. They will have to do the gauntlet. That's the law. Yeah, it's like karma, isn't it? Yeah. The woke loathe those who have a head start or ahead of them and have more stable attunement to natural order and don't get lost in the noise or undertows, like science being the only level of reality. Anyway, check out the Stephen Hicks Postmodern Resentment. It's in my Cultural Marxism playlist, in case YouTube have buried it. Well, thanks, Shelley. I'll check out your channel and I'll have a look at that. David Smith has also sent me some video recommendations, some of which I've watched. Well, thanks, Shelley. Yeah, you've got some. Gabor Mate. I've heard of Gabor Mate. He was the guy who talked about hungry ghosts. Yeah, feminism. Thank you very much, Shelley. Shelley, I don't think you've uploaded anything, but you've got created a playlist of other people's videos. So thanks very much. I will check those out. Thanks very much. I mean, it could be that some of the YouTube may well have they may well have algorithmed it, but I'll keep looking, Shelley. Okay. Shelley, this is more. Shelley says here in another comment, this is more just to you, but you can read it aloud if you're inclined. Sure, Shelley. I mean, you've sent me a private email, or you sent me a number of private emails, so I'm happy to read this one out. If you can take another minute real quick, this is really important to mount a fight. This is what I mentioned in an email worrying about some people we were discussing. Alright. Thanks, Shelley. Actually, I won't read this out because I know this is in the email and we've been discussing it privately. So thanks. You did say read it out if you're inclined, and I won't. But it's an upsetting story, and I'm sorry to hear about these people and what they've been through. I really am. It's an awful domestic situation that Shelley and I have been discussing privately. But thanks for those comments, Shelley, and thanks for watching Confronting Droik. Much appreciated. Reply to comments 82. I didn't know that Tolkien had made tweaks to the different editions of The Hobbit. Very interesting. Yes, it's in. I think it was. Let me just find out the details, because the book came out, I think, early 30s. The Hobbit. The Hobbit, a novel by J.R. Tolkien. The Hobbit, or There and Back Again. Yeah, There and Back Again. No, published 1937, a bit later than I thought. And it's the first of the Middle-earth novels. And background setting, influences, publication, revisions, yeah. In December 1937, Stanley Unwin, that's the publisher, asked Tolkien for a sequel. Tolkien provided the drafts of the Silmarillion, but the public wanted more about hobbits. Tolkien subsequently began work on The New Hobbit. That's the working title for what would become The Lord of the Rings. This course changed the context of the original story, but led to substantial changes to Gollum. In the first edition of The Hobbit, Gollum willingly bets his magic ring on the outcome of the riddle game, and he and Bilbo part amicably. In the second edition edits, to reflect the new concept of the One Ring and its corrupting abilities, Tolkien made Gollum more aggressive towards Bilbo and distraught at losing the ring. And the encounter ends with Gollum's curse. Thief, thief, Baggins, we hates it forever. Yeah, my precious, she stole my precious. Yeah. Of course, the rest of the entire series is Gollum's attempt to redeem what he lost. His precious, his ring. If you've ever wanted an allegory of addiction, that's it. Gollum is a junkie for the ring. But yeah, Tolkien changed it because to fit it in more with the sequel. Reply to comments 82. Dark Corners UK. Hi, Dark Corners. How are you doing? The Sarlacc pit in the original Return of the Jedi is definitely somewhat vaginal in its design. Now, perhaps this is a stretch, but the Sarlacc swallowing up Boba Fett, the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy, could be taken as a comment on misandry in our culture, especially in the light of Lucas's recent divorce around this time. Man being consumed by the very thing that birthed him. I've got to say, if I've got to go, I can think of worse ways than being swallowed whole by a giant vagina. It's just like I talked about this in a lot of people saying this because I talked about it in a previous video. You know, a man falls into a slimy wet hole and suffers 1,000 years of agony as he's slowly eaten alive, and it's all very Freudian. And I think this did stick in Lucas's craw when people noticed this and started saying it and saying, well, you know, George, are you a misogynist? And these other stupid things that are all too common in modern woke culture, like, maybe you are a misogynist and you don't know it, and things like that. Which I think what caused Lucas to make this terrible mistake of redesigning the Sarlacc to make it look less feminine. And completely ruin what was originally one of the most menacing and frightening things in the entire Star Wars universe. Is now this stupid sort of like pet parrot like thing, which doesn't even look good. I mean, you can see this when the guy tries to climb out and gets grabbed by the tentacle, you can see the layering problem with that. He's not even in the. Oh, anyway, yeah, but that's interesting. As Dark Corners, yes. 82. Stephen Truthseeker says, UFO nut is correct. I don't trust Gary Hazeltine either. Right. Yeah, Gary. This is a guy who said he didn't trust Gary Hazeltine. I think Gary Hazeltine is a trustworthy figure myself. I think he is. This doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. This doesn't mean I would put him in any position I like unconditionally. But yeah, I like the guy and respect him. So I'd have to disagree there. Awakening Expo 2023. Ralph Winter says, nice one, good vid. Nice one, Ben, good vid. Thank you very much, Ralph. Excuse me. Steve-O says on reply to comments, Steve-O71, I've not read the Doomsday book, Ben. Nor have I. Well, it's not very interesting, well, except if you're very keen on history, and it's very long. And it's basically a census essentially of every person and piece of land in Norman Britain. Not long after the Norman Conquest, William the Conqueror commissioned it, basically so he could take an entire stocktake of what he'd just taken over. It's basically everything in that time was England. Wales and Scotland were conquered later, yeah. Dark Corners UK says on 82, although it seems to be an unpopular opinion, I have to agree about Oppenheimer being about an hour too long. I found the overall experience long and boring. The bomb stuff was interesting, but the rest, although beautifully shot, was difficult to sit through. Yeah, it could have easily been 2 hours rather than 3. They could have got rid of the last act, and it wouldn't have spoiled it. Make the climax the detonation of the Trinity device. Make that the ending. It would be great. Maybe have a small postscript of what happened afterwards and leave it there. John Nolan says it's like the first hour of Indiana Jones, then it went downhill. Yeah, I've not actually watched any Indiana Jones film since Temple of Doom. I mean, I haven't even watched The Last Crusade, which is really on my list because it is part of the original series. And people say it is pretty much as good as the others, so that's one I would like to see. As for the new woke, oh yeah, no, I did watch. Correction, I watched The Crystal Skull, which I thought was very good. Contrary to a lot of fans, I really liked The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Perhaps because it had this E.T. Area 51 element, you know. But I thought generally it was a good film. Dark Corner said, I didn't see it, not interested in anything produced by Disney anymore. Me neither. Jam Noise says, hi Cheeky. I don't know if she's addressing me or she's addressing Dark Corners. Hi Jam Noise 72. And Dark Corner says, "Hi, sweetie." Get a room, you two. Gary Robinson says to Dark Corners, "Aside from being expensive fan fiction, Indy 5 feels very much like a directionless Disney Plus TV show edited down into a movie." Yeah, I suppose, Gary, I know what you mean. I suppose it does a bit, yeah. I mean, although I haven't actually seen it, this trailer looked like that. There are a few people on the interwebs who have been taking the recent Star Wars TV shows that suck, and editing them down into 2-hour movies that suck a lot less. That's what Indy 5 feels like. Alright, well, maybe I'll watch it. At some point I may watch it just out of curiosity. Oh, we have now reply to comments 82. Jab Noise 72. Locking Steve in the toilet analogy has really got me cracking up, bro. I was quite surprised how I came from that, yeah. And Shelley says to Jackie, yes, an initiation into some level of solidarity with your fellow man. And Jab Noise says, "Hi Shelley," yeah, something like that. Not sure Steve would see it that way, haha. And David Smith says here, "The problem is Steve isn't the one making the claims that are unsupported with good evidence." Yes, he is, David. I think he is. It's not up to Steve to prove Ben or his friends wrong. It's up to them to show they are right. Ah! This is the burden of proof, isn't it? This is the burden of proof. Yeah, that is not true. Well, I'm not going to reiterate it because you understand it, because you say straight afterwards. This false argument Ben uses against skepticism is embarrassing. It demonstrates he's deluded when it comes to these beliefs and has no ability to think critically when challenged. Well, firstly, I don't, because it's not embarrassing. It is a valid point about why certain positions are essentially upheld without any logical reason. For example, the clown's day off fallacy. If I was to just simply make up something, a clown with a day off from the circus, dressed up as some lizard, and then created the Loch Ness monster mythology of the Loch Ness monster, it would then be the onus, to use that very overused word, the onus would then be on the believer to explain why I'm wrong when I just pulled something out of my arse, conjured it off the top of my head. So it's not a false argument, David. It's not a false argument. If I were deluded, why am I engaging with you? Why am I entering into conversation with the people who disagree with me? If I have no ability to think critically when challenged, why am I? Okay, it's why he'll never attempt to call in on the various skeptic-related shows. For goodness sake, David, I've just explained to you. Oh, David, please. I have been on Skeptics with a K with Marsh. I've been interviewed by Tristan Swale. I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics in the Pub. What are you talking about? He never engages with the skeptics. No, he doesn't. Oh, of all the people you accuse of that. Or make a video response to actual popular skeptics who might actually give him feedback. Have you not seen my responses to Stefan Molyneux? Have you not seen my other video responses to... How many others have I done? Oh, what response videos. I mean, I don't know. I'm just using response in the blog now. Response videos. Okay. Reply to Reaction Reexpert. Where is it? Reply to Steve Mumbling. Reply to Stefan Molyneux. Reply to... Oh, where's the others? Reply... Oh... There's a couple of replies to Sargon of Akkad. There's a couple of replies to Dave Cullen. This is when they were in their sort of atheist phase. David, what are you talking about? Oh, if he did this, his channel could get many more views, in my opinion, but it would come at the cost of having more critical eyes on his output. David, you're talking nonsense. This is not me. You are literally. This is literally a non sequitur. I am willing. I put comments on skeptic videos. I've challenged Steve Mumbling to a debate. I'd debate Neil deGrasse Tyson if he wanted to. I've debated Tristan Swale. I've been on Skeptics with a K. I've been to Skeptics in the Pub. I've been to Tam London. I mean, what more? All right. Tell me what more I could do then. Come on. If that's not enough, what is? Anyway, we're nearly at the end of an hour now. So. Right, okay. We now have Shelley Northwest. We're now... Oh, hang on. We're on part 2. I should start the timer. There we go. Shelley says in reply to David, you might be super into harassment, just coming up with whatever you get a fix using this space for this. Have you thought about babysitting your own mind and keeping your mindset in the arena of what's moderate and nice for people instead of pushing people? Maybe put earning trust with people before harassment. It's rather clear how you use spaces. Shelley, you're kind of replying to David in the same way I was, but in a slightly different language, because I'm frustrated actually that David is... It appears it's almost like he's speaking to somebody else. It's almost like he's literally addressing somebody else. It's almost like I'm doing a film review. I've been to the movies and I've seen Star Wars and I've said Star Wars is great, it's wonderful, it's the best film ever made. And then David puts a comment underneath saying, Ben, why do you keep insisting that Star Wars is such a bad film? And I'll reply to him saying, David, no, read what I said. I said Star Wars was a really good film. And he says, there you go again, saying Star Wars was a bad film. I can't deal with that kind of dialogue. When someone is literally replying to something I never said and replying to somebody who I am not. Replying to a figment of their imagination who may look like me and have the same name, but has no bearing at all on me. Shelley says, not berating you just to berate you. I really saying that you're being corrupted and lowered by your upside down wokeness. Fix it, and please do notice that pushing people is related to authoritarianism. Prove yourself to me, damn it, quote unquote. Pushy, pushy, pushy. Please notice where you're getting all this shit you say, and perhaps you're adopting it because it's coming from state power, a boost in authority to you, telling others to prove their sloppy authority. There's way more going on here than UFO arguments. Whoosh, get off Ben's back with these jackboots. Thanks, Shelley. But if David wishes to... I'd like to have a productive dialogue with David, but it's difficult when he is responding this way towards me. Saying, well, you don't listen to skeptics, you're not interested in skeptics and things like that, when it's been one of the central projects of my entire channel. Shelley continues, I propose you're not arguing at all, you're just indulging political authoritarianism. Well, he's not arguing, Shelley, no. I mean, he's saying things that aren't even related to anything I've said, so yeah. I think you need to get studying that, ask where it goes, and do a true gut check if that's what you want. Till then, keep essentially telling people to prove themselves. On the deeper layer, you might be asking people to prove their rights to your respect. I think you're trying to figure something deeper out, the rights of man. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I can never prove myself to David. In my analogy with the movie Star Wars, it would be like I'm saying that Star Wars is a good movie, and he's here saying, no, you're saying Star Wars is a bad movie. Why do you keep saying that? I would then have to explain to him why I believe Star Wars is a bad film when I've actually stated that it's a good film. This essentially puts us on two separate logical islands with a gulf between that cannot be breached. Do you see what I mean? We're literally talking at cross purposes in the most extreme way possible. David says to Shelley, keep strawmanning me. You started with dishonesty in the form of a false dichotomy too. Is that all you have? Or can you actually refute what I'm saying? David, I can't refute what you're saying. I mean, you're addressing Shelley here. I can't refute what you're saying because you're saying something that doesn't even relate to me. I think you're trying to figure out something deeper within yourself. Maybe you learn to be enslaved. Have you read 50 Shades of Grey? I think you would learn a lot about yourself. What? Are you saying Shelley is into S&M? Because I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, that's that book, which I did grind my way through the first one. Maybe that's a bad choice of words, but basically it's about a young woman, or in the original draft. She was like about 17 or 18, and the man she met was like in his late 30s. The publisher forced the author to change it to make her about 21 and him 27. Because it was a bit too controversial otherwise with the age difference. But it's about a young girl, a university student studying English literature. She meets a man who, a wealthy businessman who has a secret life as a sadomasochistic. He's into sadomasochistic sex. Yeah. If you want to read it, I mean, but I don't see why what's that got to do with Shelley, unless you think she's a person who likes that kind of thing, and you don't know that's a part of her. If she does, it's a part of her private life. How do you know about it? She hasn't mentioned it. And that's it. That's the end of that thread. Crafty Nihilist says, "Okay, Crafty, how you doing?" I'll reply to comment 78. Oh, we've got a timestamp here. 1:31:07. Let's have a look. It says, "Hillary, stop drinking the water." What's this? Oh, it's just, I know, Hillary. I don't understand what you're saying. Yes, Hillary. I know the Hillary you mean. Hillary is not Hillary Clinton. This is someone who posts, whose posts are even more confusing than David Smith's, and they're very long, and I don't understand them, so I've just had to not reply to them. TK, hello TK UK. How do you do? I saw TK. He was actually in the live stream Christina Gomez did about the thing in Mexico. AI stands for anti-human infrastructure, and it's used to destroy all of the humans, or perhaps I've got it totally wrong and shouldn't be speaking about this subject. Hashtag do a video about it. Right. I didn't know that. I mean, AI stands for artificial intelligence officially. Whether it will destroy all of humans or not, I don't know. But as a reply to your hashtag, I've done a video about it. It's called "Should We Welcome Our AI Overlords?" and it's on my channel. Reply to comments 82. Israel Diego Rivera Genius 2. Israel Diego Rivera Genius Tooth 1 Tooth. I think it means second 164. All right. He changed his name again. India's moonlander looks like the Taj Mahal. Yeah, well, that's appropriate, isn't it? If it really landed on the moon. Diego Rivera says, "Do you consider yourself a UFO hard man, Ben?" The hardest of all, Diego Rivera. Yes, I am really in there deep. Jam Noise 72 says, "What a load of BS about mixed race people being sicker. Lol, my daughter's beautiful, healthy, and always has been." She certainly is, yes, she certainly is. Jam Noise says, "I know one white person who likes heavy. I don't know one white person who likes heavy metal. We all like the same. Music has no colour, especially old school UK garage." Well, it's a stereotype, isn't it, Jam Noise? I mean, I personally like some hip hop, and I'm white. Other people like. So I know what you mean, but these are stereotypes. I think that's what they are. Gary Robinson says, "In regards to the Zodiac Club on Cali Road, I used to go every other Friday for the Source, which was a legendary drum and bass night. Good times." Yeah, that was indeed. It was indeed, wasn't it? Yeah. I went there a couple of times. I don't remember that one, but I used to go there Friday and Saturdays with the other porters. Reply to comments 82. Here we go. Oops, what's happened now? No, published. Hang on, I've got to scroll down again. Right, oops. I just lost my place there. No, the Zodiac was actually a real good fun night out, actually, if you were whoever you might be. I was a hospital porter, obviously. But it's for anyone, really, who could go along. And it's still open, and my daughter goes there, which is nice. Here we go. Right, Gary Robinson says, "Evening, Ben, mate. So at 2 hours 43 minutes, you asked me to detail the origins of Chewbacca." Yes! I've actually mentioned this story a couple of times on your channel over the years, and both times it was to debunk researchers. Alright, I'm sorry if I forgot. You have to say again, Gary. It was to debunk researchers who claim that Chewbacca's presence represents Bigfoot, when in fact he is a nod to George's dog, Indiana, who was an Alaskan Malamute, that he owned in the 70s. I remember you did explain that, yeah. Indiana would ride around with George in his car, and friends would say that he looked like he had a dog for a co-pilot. And so George decided that Han Solo's co-pilot in the movie would be a tall, furry character. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Chewie is kind of dog-like, isn't it? He's very loyal and loving, and he can't speak, but he sort of like communicates nonetheless. The initial design had a face that looked more like a lemur, but thankfully George had him redesigned to make him look like a cross between a dog and a bear. The lemur design was eventually used for one of the characters in Star Wars Rebels. Oh, I've not seen that. Indiana Jones is also named after the dog Indiana. This is why Sean Connery's character in The Last Crusade tells Salah that Indy's real name is Henry, and their dog was called Indiana. Yeah, it's only later on I found out that his name was Henry. People just call him Indy. I mean, Indiana is an odd name for somebody. If you ever see young Indiana Jones, you'll also notice that he has an Alaskan Malamute called Indiana in the first episode. I've not seen that now. I once heard a researcher from the USA exclaiming that Chewbacca was definitely in Star Wars as a reference to Bigfoot. It just goes to show you can't trust everyone in the alternative scene. I think I just put my skeptic hat on again, only this time with an anorak. Cheers. Thanks very much, Gary. Much appreciated. And yeah, I do. You can't trust everyone in the alternative scene. No. You asked me about the Ewoks, so I might as well answer while I have my anorak on. George made a lot of changes to Return of the Jedi in order to make it more commercial, as his main focus had become financing all of his various companies and keeping his staff in employment. He realised that if he swapped the Wookiees in the end battle with smaller cuddly creatures, that he could create an additional toy line. Alright, well that sort of makes sense. In fact, I used to have a little toy Wicket. I remember I had a couple of Ewoks, I remember. Therefore, the end battle on the Wookiees' home planet of Kashyyyk, which made sense being in the movie since it shows the audience where one of the lead characters come from, was replaced with the moon Endor, and we got small bears instead. Yeah, and I remember there was cuddly toys as well. Lots of cuddly toys. The kids loved them. I've never been keen on Return of the Jedi. It is rammed with characters that were not needed, so that they could make as many toys as possible. Nothing beats The Empire Strikes Back. Cheers. Yeah, I mean the middle film in a trilogy rarely is the best. This one is. Middle trilogies, they don't really have a beginning or end. But this one really does. The Empire Strikes Back is great. The lights were low. Right, we've got a timestamp for that. George, Gary, thanks for the information. 416. The Beatles when I'm 64. Watch for copyright. Mysteries and monster cryptids, psyops, saucers and black triangles. Right, yeah, that's it should be catchy being a Lennon-McCartney. Right, that's not the song. That's not the song that. That's not the tune that Rhiannon sings. The tune is different. The tune is for the. We did discuss this actually, whether there was a copyright issue, but it's a popular TV show. It's not a commercially available song, so it's probably not a problem. I've certainly not had any mutes or strikes or anything like that. Stephen Truthseeker says, reply to comments 82, how do you know he's an ex-gay porn star, lol? Well, Stephen, that I can't tell you, but rest assured. Yes. Stephen Truthseeker, reply to comments 82, Rhiannon, does the theme tune intro music? Well, it wouldn't be like the Welsh would sing, would it? It's a huge part of our culture, isn't it? Awakening Expo 2023. Stephen, weird brainwashing chants. What's this? 139. It's a timestamp. Let's have a look. This one expired. And I do wonder if that's a coincidence. I honestly wonder if that is a coincidence. Well, I don't know what you mean there, Stephen, by weird brainwashing chants, but yeah, maybe you got the timestamp slightly wrong there. Same video, Stephen Truthseeker. Mary Rodwell doesn't look well. She looks freaked out. Well, I think she was tired. I mean, she's travelled a long way, and she had a lot to do, didn't she? She had a lot of things to deal with, doing her presentation, running her stall. Stephen says, I've got a lot more time for Mary Rodwell and what she's saying. I do. I like Mary and what she talks about. Yeah, I do. Stephen, Nick Pope is a relic of the past. He's government. We know. Well, I'd like to think he was, Stephen, but he seems to be making something of a comeback, which is a bit annoying. Stephen, maybe old Popey is Scully. Well, he's not half as good looking, if that's the case. I certainly wouldn't climb over him to get to Gillian Anderson. I certainly wouldn't climb over Gillian Anderson to get to him, I can tell you that. Stephen Truthseeker on Awake and Aware Conference 2023. There was a film once about the London Underground based in the 50s or 60s. Some guy was abducting people and keeping them prisoner in some room. Not sure if it was based on real events. I know the film you mean, yes. I can't remember what it's called. But it's this weird... There's this weird guy, keeps shouting, mind the doors, and it's the only words he can say because he's like been imprisoned in the underground his whole life. But he keeps abducting people. You're right. And I can't remember what the film's called. I can't. But it's very interesting indeed. I'm sorry if I'm puffing a bit, guys. I find myself getting a bit short of breath, and the reason is my nose. I told you in previous shows I've got a little bit of problem with my nose at the moment. So I think I've got an infection maybe of some kind. It's improved a bit, but it's still I'm taking a lot of vitamin C. It was quite scary actually, because on Tuesday night I had really bad apnea, and literally I was going to sleep, and I'd be dropping off, and I'd wake up gasping for breath because my breath just shut off, and of course, by the end of the night, I'd had no sleep, and of course, if that carried on, it would be an emergency situation. The cure was quite easy. I looked it up, and you can maybe notice I've got a few more pillows on my bed behind. I don't know if you can see my bed behind me. Yeah, I've got a few more pillows. I've propped myself up a bit more, and that has cured it. But it's still like when I'm talking a lot, I get, because my nose is slightly blocked up, I find myself, I've got to try and breathe in through my mouth. Yeah. Anyway, Waken and West Stephen again. I've seen some strange stuff happen on Liverpool Underground. Liverpool only has a small underground compared with London, but strange stuff has happened at James Street Station, I think, in the late 80s. I seen a Sergeant Major ghost manifest in full uniform. I think it used my energy to manifest. It's in Tom Sleeman's books Haunted Liverpool. I'd forgotten it happened to me, to be honest. I also seen a strange tall-looking person in a trench coat and sunglasses when I got off the train at James Street around 2008 or 9. Someone told me there was a secret base under Liverpool. All right. Was that Miles? But that's interesting. It sounds like you did have maybe a ghostly encounter there in the 80s, Stephen. You must have been quite young at the time. And, yeah, the trench coat guy. There were strange things in underground tunnels, definitely. Syntheo 2023. Timestamp by the crafty nihilist. Why, Ben? This is it's early on, 17 seconds in. So why is it again and again I keep going to funerals of my extremely proud and dignified brother and sister Porters who have passed away in their 40s, 50s, 60s? This was before the you-know-what. Yeah, the answer is... The answer is I think something seemed to be ruining them, destroying them mentally. I can't go into details because it requires really its own video, but there was like alcoholism, depression seemed to be endemic. Suicides. There was a couple of suicides when I was there. Yeah. I'll go into more details maybe in next Syntheo's video. Reply to comments 82. David Smith says, Ben, could you link me to a video you've done with a skeptic discussing your beliefs where they push back, or a video where you've directly quoted or addressed what someone has said? All right. It's bowler. I can't. It's not a video. It's a radio show. But it's because it replies. It's more kind of like It's more kind of like a review plus debate I did with Bowler Hat Man. This is a good example here. Oh, it's not. Hang on. Where is it? That's strange. That's strange. I can't find it. Here we go. Right. Try this one to start. Right, I'm going to share screen. Whoops. Display. Here we go. Program 450. I'm not going to put a link here. You can find it. There's the URL. It's on HPANWO Radio. Program 453. Podcast Bowler Hat Man Debrief. There's one. Right, where's another one? Okay. All right, here we go. I'll tell you what. This is what portals are for, Ben. This is what portals are for. Skeptics. Where's my debate here? Oh look, can you just go to this portal? Go to this portal. All right, it's all on here. Skeptics portal. There's the URL. Okay. Everything, it was all on there, okay? It's on the main HPANWO site. I think that's all I need to do, David. I think that's fair enough. Discussing right, or a video we've directly quoted or addressed what someone said. Well, there's loads of those. Loads of those. I'm not talking about writing articles or going to conventions. What's wrong? Why not? Is that not adequate? I mean, direct back and forth, or even just a video responding, not sponsors, not to Steve. I don't hold Steve as a skeptic, although I'd say he's largely skeptical. All right. So no, you won't accept articles. So, because I've written lots of articles in reply to Mick West. Does it have to be a video? And why is a video better than an article? Why is that? Why is a review of a convention or film better than an article? Look, I mean, what about when I reviewed Paranormality by Richard Wiseman? It's on the portal I showed you. What's wrong with that? Why is that? Why is that bad? Why doesn't that? It seems like you're saying I want you to do this, that, and the other, but not this. I want you to do this instead, and what you want me to do instead is exactly the same. I don't understand what hoop exactly do you want me to jump through here, David? I don't hold Steve as a skeptic, although I'd say he is largely skeptical. You mentioned Mick West. Can you link me to that video, perhaps? Did Mick West see it? Have you reached out for a chat with Mick West? Yes, I've left lots of comments on his videos. I haven't emailed him. Have you tried to call into any of the shows on the line? So many topics you could express your beliefs and opinions on, and I think it would make such an interesting call. Mick West I've addressed many times in my UFO disclosure videos. I've written an article about him on UFO Truth magazine. You'd accept if I actually emailed Mick West and I haven't emailed him. What if he didn't email me back? Would that be my fault or his? Exactly what? I don't know what you're doing. I think you're trying to corral me into a particular pen where you want me to respond to skeptics in a certain way, which you think would be better if I responded to them out. It would be better than if I responded to them outside that pen. However, David, perhaps you'd explain why my responses outside that particular pen are wrong. I've just provided you where you can find my skeptic portal. Well, we have David Smith here on Reply to Comments 82. On the one hand, circumstantial evidence is enough to justify a belief. It's strange how the forest is closed and they don't let my friend do his talks on specific days. Well, it's a suspicion, not a belief, David. So it justifies the suspicion, I think. When you read through the rule book of Forestry England, and then you look at the kind of the dialogue that Gary had with these people, there is a mismatch. And that is enough to justify suspicion. I think it's perfectly rational to do so. Yet, on the other hand, circumstantial evidence isn't enough to justify the belief that India's moon landings not having constant live stream due to some technicality. Now, again, it's not a belief, it is a suspicion, and maybe there is a technicality. David, if there is a technicality for a reason why they couldn't do that, fair enough. But I mean, I'm quite right to ask the question, with all the technology they had at hand, and the fact that a live stream of a landing on the moon would be historical. They didn't do it. They chose not to do it. If there's a reason why, I'd like to know what that reason is. It doesn't necessarily involve, oh dear, there might be some aliens we don't want people to see. It doesn't necessarily involve that, but I'm quite right to ask that question in case it does. This is what I mean. You seem perfectly happy to use such reasoning when it suits your beliefs. When it goes against them, you seem to throw the same standard away. You can't have it both ways, mate. This is why I think you're delusional when it comes to these beliefs. It's like you turn off your critical thinking for them. No, because I think I've actually given details of explanations about why I've held the positions that I do over both those examples you gave, and I've just explained they are suspicions and possibilities, not beliefs. We now have someone called Blogger526 talking of the recent successful Indian moon lander, even more impressive than the Russian failure around the same time. I'm curious what Ben makes of the Chandrayaan-2 Apollo landing module pictures, given his belief that they never landed on the moon. Apollo detectives. I'm very interested. I never said that Chandrayaan-2 never landed on the moon. So my belief is that what I believe happened is probably something did land on the moon. An unmanned probe landed on the moon. And they did, maybe an hour later, publish some still images of the area around the lander. The clarity of Apollo 11 and 12 modules, with the shadows indicating the legs of the modules and even the tracks from the moonwalks visible, is such is the resolution. No wind on the moon to disturb them in the intervening years. Hang on, I see what you mean. Hang on. I misunderstood. You're referring to the moon, the photographs taken by the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter of the Apollo landing site. All right. It is very hard to dismiss as anything than what they purport to be. If there were a conspiracy, wouldn't the Indian Space Agency state they photographed at the landing site and found them empty and proved it in the same manner? No. They would have to have a vested... What vested interest would they have on exposing NASA? Why would they do that? Why? You see, it goes back... we've explained quite clearly why the USSR would not blow the whistle on NASA. As for the images you created, the images you see in that picture could very easily be created in other ways than being photographs. The very fact, actually, that the footprints are still visible is very interesting, because several people have actually stated that those tracks would not last as long as people think. People assume because there's no wind or rain on the moon that the tracks would last forever. Basically, it's not true, because they can be disturbed by moonquakes, which are quite common, and the moonquakes would basically shake the loose material, the very, very fine powder that is covering the moon, and cause them to fill in, the very fine granules, and cause them to fill in. You may be aware, you may have noticed that the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter shows very clearly that the flag that the NASA astronauts supposedly planted there is still visible. It's casting a shadow, whereas the experience of the orbital flags put up by the Mir space station, which had to be changed after the fall of the Soviet Union, indicate that a piece of fabric wouldn't last that long in space with micrometeor impacts continuously, which would very quickly make it very threadbare and moth-eaten. So perhaps you could explain to me exactly why the Indian Space Agency would want to do that. Why wouldn't they collaborate? What's their vested interest right now in dropping this bombshell on the public of the world? Well, it's in their interest actually to collaborate with NASA. No doubt they're getting help from NASA and from Roscosmos. I mean, it's very rare that nations don't actually collaborate in some way. David says underneath, yeah, I was going to mention something similar too. Russia, which Ben seems to hold up as some kind of free nation under a great ruler. David, that's a slight exaggeration. I claim that Russia would divert it from the New World Order agenda, which is true. What I actually said was that there was originally a plan for the Soviet Union, to persist into the modern world. That's what when Gorbachev actually went to the Rockefeller Foundation meeting in 1977, I think it was, and then became Soviet Premier in 1984. The idea was he would reform the USSR into something similar to modern China. Communist in name, but capitalist or corporatist otherwise. That didn't happen, of course. The whole system ended up collapsing, and now we have like the Russian Federation, which was never the plan for the New World Order. And then I went and explained that how Putin was actually not a lead; it was actually something of a wild card in this agenda. This doesn't mean that I've been accused of everything's polarized in this world. So I'm a great ruler, free nation, etc. That's an exaggeration. Anyway, I hold Russia up as a great nation under a great ruler. Managed to smash into the moon, apparently. So I hear, yeah. But where is the live stream video of that? Well, maybe they were a bit too embarrassed to show it, David. Must never have happened. Or it did, but they caught too many alien bases, so couldn't release the footage. Well, I know you're being sarcastic, David. Maybe that's possible. So Putin's part of the cover-up, but he's also against the New World Order. It gets a bit messy. Well, he's not. The thing is, there may be many reasons why that live stream failed, if there was a live stream. As I said, it could simply be embarrassment. And Blogger here says, Ben's views on Russia, and more specifically Putin, is a great example of the pushing the square peg into the round hole to fit his conspiracy theorist worldview that inevitably leads to it getting messy when there's an obvious contradiction. Well, I don't think there's an obvious contradiction, Blogger, so... Yes. A free nation doesn't lock up its citizens on a whim. It follows a Western style. Okay, I've never said Russia. I never said Russia was some kind of post-Illuminati paradise. Again, you're polarizing me. It follows a Western-style democracy, which, although far from perfect, doesn't allow a leader to remain in power indefinitely. Oh dear, I mean, there's things I can't say on YouTube about Western-style democracies, blogger, but suffice to say that there's a certain individual in the White House in a mobility scooter who really should, well, you know what I think about that. Funnily enough, even Putin can't keep his ducks in a line when it comes to his reason for invading Ukraine, which must be causing the conspiracy theorists some problems in keeping a believable alternative. I'm still waiting to see these liberated Ukrainians freed by the Russian military and not dead bodies or kidnapped children. I don't believe a word the mainstream media says about that war. I've also explained in previous videos why I think that invasion took, well, I say invasion, liberation took place. You could probably watch the video and perhaps comment on that, blogger. Right, here we go. Right. Reply to comments 82. David Smith is on a roll here. Ben, if you're skeptic, in your skeptic video, you define skepticism how it suits you, and then you refute that. What? No, what I said was I defined skepticism about how the skeptics themselves define it, and then I explained why I thought that was wrong. I didn't define it the way it suits me. I voiced their own definitions themselves, and then explained why I thought that was wrong. You haven't actually refuted skepticism, and when you say he said, she said, and claim they were a skeptic, by their very words, it shows they are not being skeptical. Well, yeah, this is. I suppose you're referring to Sally Morgan here. It's, and I stand by what they said. They debunked her on hearsay, and Sally sued them quite rightly. It's like saying, quote, he said nothing against homosexuality, and that's the true face of the LGBTQ movement, unquote. It makes no sense. I don't understand that simile. I don't. What happened when I pushed you on the 9/11 hologram claims? You eventually got to, quote, well, I don't know, but I'm going to believe it because that's what is needed for another part of the belief to be true, unquote. That's not a quote by me, David. That is a false paraphrasing of what I said. If you can't see the fallacy in that way of thinking, you're beyond reason. You're literally being irrational in your beliefs. Says the guy who claims that I never interact with skeptics. You're actually now saying that that I am beyond reason. You're the one who's essentially talking to a figment of your imagination, and you say I am beyond reason. Right. What I said was about the hologram 9/11. I said that it fits in with I never use the hologram. Is probably a false word. It's some kind of projection. Or may some kind of false image of some kind. What I said was it fits with the forensic evidence as identified by Dr. Judy Wood and Andrew Johnson. That's what I said. That is what I actually said, David. I didn't say I'm going to believe it because that's what it's needed for another part of the belief. No, I explained, and Dr. Judy Wood explains in the book exactly why that is the case. Why the damage to the buildings doesn't fit with them being hit by an aircraft. You can't just put this false quote by me and then say you've proved me wrong. You have to actually address what Dr. Judy says in her book and explain why that is incorrect. Okay. It's not honest. It's not a pathway to truth. It's just a way to behave when whatever you want to. It's a way to believe whatever you want to believe without actually having good reasons. I don't think so, David. I think I'm being as honest as I can. I'm really trying to be honest here. I aspire to be honest in my discussion with you. Or when you claimed good reasons are shown to be lacking in merit, they are either brushed over or added with another layer of conspiracy conjecture. What? When your claimed good reasons are shown to be lacking, they're either brushed over or added with another layer of conspiracy conjecture. No, if you claim that my good reasons are lacking in merit, which you do all the time, I try to explain. I try to analyse your rebuttal and then try to explain why I think they're wrong. If indeed I do believe you are wrong, which sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're right. I mean, I do agree with you on some things. 82, David Smith. Levitation might require a bit more than a video, Ben, and for a good reason. All right. The same way you wouldn't accept a video of a box of gold as good evidence to send money. Levitation, I'd argue, is much more extraordinary than a box of gold. Just another example about how you strawman the position of skepticism. Yeah, I mean, alright, David, this is an example of what I'm saying. This is an example of what I've just stated. You're actually right that levitation requires more than a video. And yes, and I wouldn't accept a video of a box of gold as evidence to send money. I wouldn't. It does require some kind of laboratory study, and indeed, as I've explained, this is being done. And indeed, if you watch my interview with Raza, you may learn a little bit more about that. And if you watch the videos Andrew Johnson has produced, or indeed, I say videos, just said they're not enough, the various studies that Andrew Johnson has put on checktheevidence.com. Reply to comments 82. You do the same with feminism as you do with... This is David Smith, of course. You do the same with feminism as you do with skepticism. You redefine it to fit your narrative, then respond in a way that completely fails to address skepticism stroke feminism. No, I respond to the excessive that feminism celebrate. That's what I do. I respond to their attacks against my demographic. This is what I mean. If a feminist says all men are evil, that doesn't mean feminism is a belief that all men are evil. It'd be like saying just because a Christian says UAPs are angels, that Christianity is a belief that all UAPs are angels. No, because if Christians will usually criticize any Christians who say that UAPs are angels. Christians who don't believe that. The so-called moderate feminists do not punch left. So I say, well, if a feminist says all men are evil, does that mean feminism is a belief that all men are evil? Well, you see, the fact that to the feminists who say they don't believe that will not criticise those that do indicates that yes, feminism is a belief that all men are evil. Otherwise, I think these moderate, reasonable feminists, so-called, would be slightly more condemning of their more extreme elements. And they would stop saying, well, I don't agree with those feminists, but they're still sisters, and giving them succor, giving them finance, giving them legal advice, which is what moderate feminists do. So, yeah, feminism is a belief that all men are evil. It has to be. Otherwise, we'd see more pushback from within feminism against the radical feminists, who literally do want, say, white men, gas chambers. Blogger says underneath here, isn't that right? Blogger 526. Skepticism is a default mindset for any person with reason critical thinking skills. Yes, skepticism in the philosophical sense, yes it is. To group people as skeptics versus truth seekers seems a bit disingenuous. Skeptic people want the truth, and it could be argued they want the truth more, as they are less likely to be convinced easily. Harbouring traits such as doubt, dubiety, mistrust, suspicion and uncertainty are vital in looking at conspiracy theories. Truth seekers seem to me... Alright, you should have a comma there or a full stop. Truth seekers seem to me to have the trait of being gullible, easily convinced, overly trustworthy, etc. Ben sadly is what would be termed a conspiracy theorist locked into a worldview that everything isn't quite as it seems and will happily accept all alternative views at face value simply for being alternative to accepted reality. This results in a vast majority of his research being skewed to his beliefs. Feminism, for example, has to be some conspiracy against men by some NWO-type organisation promoting some undefined woke agency rather than the reaction to misogyny prevalence within society. Okay. Skepticism is a default mindset to any person with reason critical thinking skills. Philosophical skepticism is, yes. And he says, yet to group, I assume you're a he, blogger, you sound like a man. Oh, maybe that's just my tacit misogyny coming through. To group people as skeptics versus truth seekers seems a bit disingenuous. No, it's not disingenuous, blogger. It's a convenient label, I know, to describe certain categories of individuals into certain belief groups. It may not be correct. For example, to say people who I call skeptics are often do not practice philosophical skepticism. And people I call truth seekers have a wide variety of beliefs, some of which I don't agree with. They include people who I think are wrong about an awful lot. It's just a convenient way of dividing people without explaining too much in one sentence. Skeptical people want the truth, and it could be argued they want the truth more. as they are less likely to be convinced easily. Philosophical, skeptical people do, blogger, and I aspire to be part of that myself. Harbouring traits such as doubt, dubiety, mistrust, suspicion and uncertainty are vital when looking at conspiracy theories. Yes, they are, and that's fair enough. And I know skeptics do, which is why I endeavour to respond to you when you express that doubt, dubiety, mistrust, suspicion and uncertainty. I express the doubt, dubiety, mistrust, suspicion and uncertainty when it comes to mainstream beliefs as well. Is that unreasonable? Do you agree with that? Truth seekers seems to me to have the trait of being gullible, easily convinced, overly trustworthy, etc. Well, it can be. It can be. With some, I think some people are. I've seen people on my, I would consider fellow truth seekers who believe, for example, the Mexico bodies are real aliens, and despite the evidence that has emerged since that hearing, that really is overwhelming that these are fabrications. They are fabricated fake bodies, which have been basically taken by the black market in antiquities and made to look like aliens. I think that's now overwhelming. Yet there are still people. I mean, I was sort of on the fence for a while before the information changed for me. So, yeah, I mean, there are some people though who are still convinced, perhaps over trustworthy, of the people who've been promoting the idea that no, these are actual aliens. Ben Sadley is what would be termed a conspiracy theorist locked into a world that everything isn't quite as it seems and will happily accept all alternative views at face value simply for being alternative to accepted reality. Blogger, I mean, you must realise now that I'm replying to you. You're someone new I've never met before. Surely you understand that just me replying to you refutes that entire sentence. Surely. This results in the vast majority of his research being skewed to his beliefs. I have a bias, but I do try to be fair and try to be open, which again is why I'm having these discussions. It's why I'm having these discussions, and why I mean, being skewed to a belief, I think is too strong. I have a bias. I have a logical mechanism for trying to overcome that bias, which I try to use. For example, feminism has to be a conspiracy against men by some NWO type organisation. Well, no, it's used by NWO type organisations to weaponise women against civilization. But it's not. The feminism itself is not the conspiracy. Feminists themselves are not conspirators. Promoting some undefined woke agenda rather than a reaction to misogyny prevalence within society. Well, yeah, I do believe that it is promoting something I think is wrong, and I'll be explaining more about that later because David brings this up again. A reaction to misogyny prevalence within society. I think it's a reaction to something they believe is real, which I think is not. And I explain why. I've done several videos about that, like women in ufology, white people. My reply to Christy Winters. Please, blogger, do look at some of these videos because I explain that in more detail. David Smith says to blogger, "You put it better than me. Conspiracy theorists are skeptical about some things I noticed. Maybe skeptical about skepticism sometimes too." Well, yeah, and I think that's fair, David. That's fair enough, isn't it? Now we have someone called Lab Based, who says, "I feel this is common theme with many of similar ilk to Ben." Right, what, hospital porters? Just kidding. There's often a conspiracy theory suggested, around e.g. climate change is all made up and lies by the global community of scientists for nefarious reasons. Take your pick of potpourri for reasons. However, when a real conspiracy regarding climate change is proven with viable data that conflicts with a theory, e.g. the fossil fuel industry have been behind a global misinformation campaign to play down and discredit climate change data for decades for their own agenda profiteering, it isn't accepted as a conspiracy, it is ignored. That's a very long sentence, Lab-based, so I'll have to break it down. There is often a conspiracy theory suggested climate change is made up and lies by the global community of scientists for nefarious reasons. Take your pick of potpourri of reasons. Alright, well the reason is basically, the main reason is to create a global authoritarian government. But it's not made up by the global community of scientists, it's made up by by a political class that operates within science and is often has a lot of authority within the world of scientists, the scientists who then disagree with it are punished. I mean, you may say, but science is perfect. Everything falls before it, as Richard Dawkins said. In an ideal world, yes, science could draw these perfect circles of reason, when science is completely separated from political forces, but science is not. So it's not lies by a global community of scientists. It's lies by a political class from which the community of scientists is essentially compelled to obey, with almost a gun pointed at their careers as a result. For this reason, they may well go along with it. I mean, you can't call that lying in a sense, because there's no premeditative motive. There's no premeditated decision to lie. We'll carry on. However, when a real conspiracy regarding climate change is proven with verifiable data that conflicts with the theory, e.g., the fossil fuel industry has been behind a global disinformation and misinformation campaign to play down and discredit climate change data for decades for their own agenda and profiteering, it isn't accepted as a conspiracy, it's ignored. Well, it is not ignored, lab-based, and the reason it's not ignored is because I have made a video called I'll show it to you. I have made a video called Merchants of Doubt Review. And it says here, I've attended a community screening of the film Merchants of Doubt, a movie about climate change. Apparently, we've been conned over climate change, but by whom, and why? I've made a video about that. Now, when you make I think you can safely say, lab-based, when you make a video about something, that is not ignoring it, is it? Now, I could give you a long reply about my position on this. That is the fossil fuel industry apparently behind a real conspiracy. In other words, they're kind of like boosting up the climate change deniers, quote unquote. Or you can just watch that video. But don't tell me I'm ignoring it, please, because I'm not. And David Smith says here, just add on this is a great double act I have here. Just to add on this, after listening to some of the comments made by somebody else in this video, reply video, Shelley, yeah, skepticism doesn't stop us from investigating. The skeptic movement does, David. Skepticism in its pure literal form doesn't. The skeptic movement does. I often see this argument about open-mindedness and skepticism being opposites, but it's completely untrue. No, because you see, skepticism. When I say skepticism, I mean the skeptic movement is the opposite of open-mindedness. It is actually against open-mindedness, and I explain why in the videos. Being a good investigator actually requires skepticism as standard. It requires skepticism with a C or a small s, or let's just to clear up any confusion, skepticism with a C and with a small s means the literal definition of philosophical skepticism. Skepticism with a big S and a K means the skeptic movement. Can we decide on that, David, so we don't sort of like misunderstand each other? Being a good investigator does indeed require skepticism with a C. Yes. If we didn't have skepticism, we'd be still be looking at the clouds, listening to thunder, and calling it a god because we'd already have our truth. Yes, with a C, skepticism with a C, yes, we would. In other words, science and reason is the thing that essentially broke us out of primitive cultures, yes, and we became a technological society as a result of science. And skeptics always say, but all these woo-woos go online on the internet slagging science off. Science gave them the internet to slag it off. We woo-woos don't slag off science. We slag off the skeptic movement. It's the two different things. Skepticism tells us that we should investigate further and not just accept such claims without good evidence. Skepticism with a C, yes. So it's precisely what is needed to come to true or more accurate conclusions. This is why going against skepticism quite often leads to failures in logic and reasoning, and far from finding truth gives us false conclusions. When it's skepticism with a C, yes. Doing a video on it doesn't really negate any of that. David, my videos didn't negate any of what you've just said. There are a plethora of videos on skepticism that contradict your video. Until you address them and debunk them, I don't see how you're referencing a video you've done is a reply. Well, which video? I mean, show me the video, David. I mean, Steve Mumbling's videos, I mean, do they not count? If that doesn't, what does? Again, we're getting into this pen. What videos are you talking about? Or, well, I know you're going to post some later, and I do have a reply for you. So maybe that's what you mean. So yeah, maybe we'll wait until then, shall we? Okay, now we have Mr. McGee. Mr. McGee, this is homeopathic aspartame. This is a lovely old video I made. Mr. McGee says, "Oh my god, that was brilliant. Internet gold. It made me laugh. You should create playlists of your older videos with the majority of them being short. What that does, it lets the viewer watch one video after the other and automatically plays the next one." And I say, Anthony, thanks, Andy. Glad you employed this HPANWO TV classic. Good idea. Yeah, it is. I should get that done, actually. It's sort of on my to-do list. But then, homeopathic aspartame is an old comedy video I made from, God, I think it was 2011. But I'm very proud of it. It was quite funny. Reply to comments 82. We have here, user MI1S, and there's some numbers here. I'm 5'0" and do not accept a man to be taller than, and do not expect a man to be taller than me. All right. Do not expect a man to be taller than me. Well, most men will be. I mean, are you male or female? I mean, if you're 5'0", then most men will be taller than you, whether you're male or female. Yeah. In fact, most women will be taller than you too. Right. Razvihari on Apollo, UFOs, and Tesla. The crafty nihilist says first. And tinfoil hat on your way. Jam Noise says, I think you were second. Oh dear. Steward's inquiry, everyone. Photo finish. We have here. Alright, this is Raza, and it's the crafty nihilist. I'm just going to let Steve Mumbling out of his cage. On your marks, get set, steaming pile! And I'm saying here, I've decided to debate him if he's willing to avoid the moon landings. I wrote that in there. And Steve071 says it's going to be like Al Foreman. Paranormal Peep Show, Neil Peel, Paranormal Peep Show. Bring in the sponsorship. And this Steve-O says, sponsored by A New Soul Suppositories for all them steaming piles. I love it, I love it. And Steve, mumbling himself, decides to come in. Ben the Jail Potter, you're making the ridiculous claim that you lot won the moon landing debate. You didn't, and your refusal to debate me again on that subject proves that conclusively. You know you would get thrashed again. That's the truth of the matter. Let's go again and put your rubbish to bed once and for all. I hadn't even started hammering you into the ground. Oh, right. Steve, I've actually written to you and I've said if you want to make a statement, you want to make a monologue about this situation, I'm quite happy for you to do it, but if you do so, I will not reply. I want to discuss other issues with you. This is not because I believe that, it's not because of what you said here that I know I'd get thrashed again. I just want to move on from this particular subject, not least because I personally don't, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'm the best person to hold a single live debate with you on this subject. I don't think I have all the necessary information to hand to bring up. The others do. People like Marcus and Randy, and they do, you see. And so, which is why I believe they would, I don't believe I've got to be honest, I'm going to be honest with you and humble as I can here. I don't think I don't have the skills and specialist knowledge necessary to debate you on the moon landings. Okay? So if you want to make a singular statement that you believe you won, we could make this as part of your introductory statement to our debate. But like I said, then I'd be happy to debate you it wouldn't be like a live stream, but it would be like recorded, you and me, face to face, like last time, just you and me, which we then both download and upload to our channels, and every single other subject is on the table except for the moon landings, alright? I particularly want to talk to you about UFOs and free energy. Okay? If you agree to that, I'm up for that. So please, and since you posted this comment like 13 days ago, we've actually had no further response from you on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing some response. Right, we have Hugo Rune says, me first! Wow, watching now, we'll comment later. This is on Raza Vihari. Sorry, Hugo, I'm afraid the tinfoil hat's already been won on this particular video. And Crafty says here, Steve-O says, nice one, Hugo. Crafty says, sorry, Hugo, I was first. Steve-O says, boo! I think Steve-O had a bet on Hugo. Jamnoy says, you were second, Hugo. Jamnoy says, claim your space girl first, said Crafty Nihilist. The Light Willow said, alright, here we go. 3223. The Light Willow says, as Captain Mannering used to say in Dad's Army, really now, Jones, you're entering the world of fantasy. Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. What's this?
Okay.
Oh, if only someone had a VCR running at that time. Because
I wish.
Yeah, obviously there was no streaming services in those days.
Yeah.
Oh right. Yeah. Okay. Now, Jones, you really are entering into the world of fantasy. Well, don't you see? This was basically unprovable because no one recorded it. Okay. I mean, I do wonder actually if somewhere there's some tape of it lying around. But it would be good if somehow we could get hold of a copy of that. Of course, the skeptics will say we faked it, and indeed there are fake versions of these kinds of confessions all over the place. Raza, nothing as it seems, says the politics of you feeling good. You is EW of you feeling good. And we have a link. We have a YouTube link here. Oh, it's video unavailable, blocked in. All right, it's a music video. Right, you are nothing. Hugo Rune says on Raza. Oh right, here we go. Artemis mission. All right, here we go. How very interesting. 1050 onwards. My full name now. I've changed my name. Is Hugo Artemis Solon Saturnicus Reginald Arthur Rune. Oh right. I'll still call you Hugo for short if you don't mind. 1050 onwards is a timestamp. What's it say?
Of the Artemis mission is just on the internet and high.
Oh right, yeah, okay. That's quite a grand name there you've got there, Hugo. I must say. I chose my name from Robert Rankin, a fiction writer, one of his characters. I must investigate Artemis more now. Why did they choose that name? Well, I thought was it not? What's her name? Mervyn Peake. Wasn't there someone called Artemis in Mervyn Peake? I can't remember. There were some books. I read one of them when I was a kid. I didn't really understand it. I think it was a bit too old for me. But Hugo Artemis Solon Saturnicus Reginald Arthur Rune. You sound aristocratic, my friend. And Neil says Artemis is the sister of Apollo in mythology. Yes, I understand. Yes, that's right. Artemis. There used to be a temple of Artemis, which was one of the 7 wonders of the world. Hugo says thank you. And Steve, mumbling, says to Neil, geez, Neil, you actually got something right. Call 60 Minutes. And Neil says to Steve, something that Marcus related to me, so you can thank him. Yes, that's right, good old Marcus. Razavihari, Martin Taylor. I know Martin Taylor, he often appears in live streams. I've actually met Martin Taylor. Hugo Rune, you need to ask this quack where he gets his wacky-packy from. Good stuff. Are you suggesting that Raza is a bit of a space cadet? Well, maybe, that doesn't mean what he's saying is untrue, even if he is. But, he's not on the scale of Hugo, certainly. I think he could like us. I think he could smoke Niall Murphy under the table, quite frankly. Hugo Rune says, amazing coincidences for me. You mentioned Ukraine. I had my accident while working in Ukraine in 1992, which left me in a wheelchair, and now Artemis. Thanks, Ben. Yes, of course, Mr. Artemis Solon Saturnicus, whatever your name is. I do remember you telling me about that, Hugo, yeah. But I mentioned you've been all over the world, and it's like, that was one of the countries you visited. Raza says here, this is Raza. This is someone called Keith McLaren, 1972. They did go to the moon, Ben. It was the reason why they went that was kept from the masses. The reason they went was a geological problem. You can find small glass beads all over the globe, and they are the same glass which forms under Trinity nuke huge energy release. The only thing that could possibly create them globally is the sun. Only way to prove it was go to the moon. And if they were present there, it has to be our sun. It must nova periodically. The beads were found was the reason Armstrong and co looked so strange at the press briefing. All right. So they found the same sort of like mineral on the moon, and they wanted to prove that. Moon landing geek son Apollo prototype rocket was called Nova. Lol. Was changed Saturn V too obvious. All right. Well, Nova means new in Latin. And in fact, it comes from nova. Nova is short for stellar nova, which means a new star. Because often when stars experience a stellar nova, when stars actually experience a stellar nova, they sometimes a dim star will suddenly brighten by millions and millions of times. So stars will appear in the sky which you couldn't see before. A new star, stellar nova. Okay, so we'll leave it there, and I'll come back and answer the rest of your comment in part 3. Right, guys, here we go. Hour number 3 coming up and going down. So where are we now? Okay, so I sort of halfway. I was halfway through replying to Keith McLaren, but his arguments, his comment is very long. So I thought what I'll do is I'll come back and continue with a second timestamp for the second half of this comment. Now I must say it's a bit difficult to follow because he doesn't use capitalisation or very good punctuation, but I'm still going to do my best to talk about what he says here, because I'm not going to use that against him like some people would me. It says here they have been building underground long-term survival shelters for themselves. Very few people will survive without them. Right. So you're referring here to the nova, the sun going nova, which it could do. I mean, there's such a thing as micronovas. These are periodic mini explosions of stars, which then eventually die down, and the star continues after. And that basically, he was just explaining the moon landings were done to check. Just to give a recap, this guy Keith McLaren is claiming the moon landings were done to verify that there was going to be a nova event on the sun, and as a result, the elite had to prepare for it and let the rest of us sort of sit in the open and fry. He says here, Bart Sobral admits NASA sent him the material they have been filming fake shit and putting it out there to hide the imminent solar nova flood ice age need to be in survival zones. Aliens are real, don't know if they will help, don't think they like our government. Sorry, this is a long sentence, or it's several sentences without punctuation. I didn't see the bit where Bart says that. I know Bart has released some new videos recently. I actually didn't know that NASA sent him material on this. Is Bart now talking about this solar nova thing? And flood, ice age, etc. As for the aliens helping, I don't. What can aliens do about when it comes to the sun, changing the sun? Okay. Razavihari, Jam Noise 72. So they're going to admit it was fake in the past to prove that the BS today is real. LMFAO, does this guy think the Indian moon landing was real? WTAF. Jam Noise, yeah, he did say that. He said that at some point they were going to admit that they'd faked Apollo, and he explains the reasons why. I mean, whether that actually comes to pass, I don't know. And as I explained to him, I'm not sure what exactly do they gain from doing that now. And he claims that this is why. He says this was the reason they'll do it, because that will somehow make more people believe in the Artemis landing. I can't remember exactly what he said. But Blogger526 says underneath, 146 total launches to the moon to date, not all successful, including flybys, orbiters, impact probes, landers, rovers, manned landings. These were carried out by 12 different nations or groups of nations, the USSR, EU. And do you think they were all fake? You might want to reassess what you think constitutes real. They seem to be a very large group of competing nations. Right, you're addressing Jam Noise here, Blogger, but I can reply to you some of these points. I don't believe that all those missions were fake. No, I do not. I think most of them were real. And as for large group of competing nations, I suggest you read Anthony Sutton. It's already been brought up here, and about his discoveries about the Cold War. You might want to look at Percy and Bennett and what they've and the video, and indeed Marcus Allen brought this up on the Apollo Detectives video about how the Russians faked stuff of their own, including there was clearly the first manned space launch by Yuri Gagarin. Clearly there were some problems with it in terms of the lighting effects inside the capsule, things like that. And Jam Noise says, "Oh please, thanks for the laugh." A blogger says underneath the Jam Noise, "I'm laughing at you, not with you." Oh, that is a repair. This is that's a reiteration of what Terry Wogan said to David Icke in 1992. A blogger says again to Jam Noise, "Even this guy has enough knowledge to understand they can't all be fake, and is trying to rationalise this with a conspiracy theory that the moon landing was faked. We have live streams of Mars landers, such as the advance in tech since 1969. Are those faked too? We do indeed," a blogger. And, well, according to Richard D. Hall, if you read his book, where he puts out a hypothesis, he does believe the Mars missions are faked. Now, we do have live streams from the Mars landers, but then in that case, why don't we have a live stream from Chandrayaan 2? What an odd little bubble of delusion you must find yourself in, and incredibly distrusting of anything which can't be healthy for you mentally. That's an ad hominem blogger. Raza, Wild Fox 01. I doubt America would openly admit to faking the moon landing. It would ruin their political reputation and clout on the international stage. Assuming they did fake it, of course. There's no real compelling evidence. Well, I disagree with you about the last bit, Wild Fox. There is compelling evidence. Would they actually admit it the way Raza says? I'm dubious. I'm dubious. We may see, though. We may see. Raza, Hugo Rune. Alcohol deaths, 1,276. Tobacco deaths, 76,000 per annum. Cannabis deaths, 0,000. Right. Please correct me. Now, he's addressing someone called Matthew Hopkins, who I can't see, which I don't know why that is. I often find I can't see some comments. I did clear the spam folder, actually, before I started, but there you go. And then he replies again underneath. I think Matthew Hopkins might have been saying that cannabis was dangerous. But anyway, Hugo replies to Matthew, "I will look into that deeper, thank you. But it is my medication. I even get it prescribed. Stoners, you say? I never thought of myself as a stoner." Well, everyone else does, Hugo. All I can say is I never get stoned. Hugo, you get stoned all the time, mate. My severe spasms are reduced dramatically and I am comfortable. What is stoned? Yeah, what is stoned? Alright, yeah, that's true, Steve. This is why it's prescribed to you. You need it for your condition, yeah. I get that, yeah. I used to get drunk long ago. On cannabis, I'm relaxed and comfortable with my disabled limitations. When drunk, I'm potentially in danger. I never get drunk nowadays. Just 6 cans per day to flush out my bladder. Alright. Thanks for your comment. Right, if you want to flush out your bladder, I mean, it's better to drink like some water or something like that, so you can get rid of like any problems you have down there. Yeah, cystitis and stuff. 6 cans per day. That's not a lot? I'll tell you what, Hugo. I mean, that was if you can drink 6 cans per day, you may be it could be that a hospital porter could be looking at the underside of your table pretty soon. Anyway. You ask what is stoned. Stoned is you posting on this channel, Hugo. That's what stoned is. Hugo's sister Matthew Hopkins. Many thanks for your comment. I'll take that and think about it, although I'm unaware of any kids reading my posts here. Sorry. Alright. I can't read Matthew's comment. This channel is aimed at adults. It's set for not safe for kids, so yeah. Some of my videos are specifically login only. Hugo says here on Raza. Says here to Raza, another coincidence you mentioned the Philippines. In 1992 I spent 6 months there, working upgrading their telecoms to digital. Interesting. Hugo, before I even read that sentence, I guessed you were going to say that. You mentioned this place. I've been there. Yeah, I think I did guess that, yeah. Right, Dr. Sai says on Raza, strangely enough, I also came up with the electromagnetic pulse engine. If you know how car engines works, well, this one uses spark plugs for its ignition, you'll understand. Basically, replace the spark plugs with magnets, change the engine materials, apart from pistons, to some material that's not magnetic. The only metal part should be the pistons. The same firing order of the engine would fire a current to the coil that increases the voltage, which then goes through the magnets where the spark plug would have been, turning that magnet into an electromagnet, drawing the piston up, and so on, till cylinder 4 then repeats. It will be silent and could have a crank at the other end of the pistons to produce energy. Dr. Stephen Greer was interested in this when I gave him the logistics. really, Dr. Side, have you got like some diagrams on that? Because I think I can visualise it in my mind what you've got. Are you suggesting this system produces over unity, so that the magnets actually, with the movement of the pistons plus the magnets, actually it actually exceeds the input voltage? Is that right? Raza Vihari says, oh, sorry, this is Raza Vihari, not him saying it. This is Taff Derek Baker, who says, I wouldn't trust NASA with the skin off my shit. And Jam Noise says, same. No. Raza says, Jam Noise, I think if you are to debate Steve, then it should be live. Come on, bro. Then we can all be involved in the clear up. Jam Noise, I mean, you'd love to, and I know you will, and but you see, Jam Noise, if it's live, the problem then is, firstly, it needs to process before it downloads, and that can take a couple of days sometimes. It's very annoying. Second problem is, I want to be able to focus on Steve alone, and I'd like Steve to focus on me alone. Otherwise, we'll have to keep coming back to the live chat, and we have to keep coming back to the live chat and sort of answering people. I mean, what I might do if I do this debate with Steve is I might have, the reason you'd like to be involved in the clear up, right? And I understand that, and that's fair enough. What I might do afterwards, Jackie, is do like a live stream where I show the video in the same way I did for my a person goes to OLM 1 year on video. So I'd have a live stream, I'd show the video in the live stream of me and Steve debating, and then answer your comments in the live stream as a result. You see what I mean? Do you think that sounds fair enough? I mean, because I think I'd like you to be involved in the clear up, but it's just, I think if I'm dealing with Steve face to face, I want it to be one-on-one, which we can only really do when we're just talking privately. But there'll be no editing. I'll upload the raw file. That'll be one of the conditions. Nice Lives Matter says Einstein hair. Oh right. Well, who are you referring to? Certainly not me. Unless you mean the things behind me, which are part of Wardenclyffe Tower. Raza has cool hair, but he has like really long sort of cool hair. Raza again. The real Slamady one. That's the. Oh, is it there? Oh, I can't. It's like a portmanteau, typical internet portmanteau without spaces. The real Slamady one. Okay. Right. I remember a news article on John Craven's Newsround, a kids' news show that says aliens were real. I eagerly awaited the announcement on the real news later in the day. Needless to say, there was nothing. Really? I used to watch that when I was a kid. Yeah, I used to like it. And they did actually, on one of them, they did talk about the Berwyn Mountains incident. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. I wonder if you can find a link to it. I'd be very pleased. Okay, Raza says, Blogger says, I keep saying Raza says, because it's Raza Vihari on Apollo, UFOs and Tesla. Blogger2526 says, I'm not sure if someone said to Ben, get a space cadet to interview about Apollo for insider information about NASA, but they probably didn't mean the sort of space cadet Raza Vihari appears to be. Pure comedy, and it's no wonder the Apollo moon landing conspiracy theory gets laughed out of the room with folks like this. Alright, do you have a comment to make on what he actually said, Blogger? Because that is a pure ad hominem attack. If he were a mathematician, and he said that 2 + 2 = 4, would you say, no, 2 + 2 = 5? And I know that because, he's a total space cadet with insider information on fundamental simple mathematics. But it's pure comedy. It's no wonder why, this 2 + 2 = 4 idea gets laughed out of the room with folks like this. Everyone knows 2 + 2 = 5. Would that follow? Because if not, why not? Raza again, Steve mumbling, recorded live at Happy Acres. Shortly after today's basket weaving classes. Steve, you were there too. Did you see that little little work dog I did? I thought that was lovely. Steve Mumling's put a link in here, which is probably his own video. Or there's 2 YouTube links, which are probably his own videos. It's what he normally does. Let's have a look. Yeah. If I debate him, I'm going to have to watch all these videos. Oh no, it is. It's the steaming pile! Right, what's the other one then? Let's have a look. The other one is this one. Let's have a look. It's someone called the circus theme song long version. All right, it's the Barnum March basically by this particular YouTuber. 30 minutes of the Barnum March. Do you wanna listen to that? Right, Steve. I think I'll get the point on Raza, but I don't agree with you, obviously. Raza, the lights were low, says on Raza. I don't want to be a skeptic. Then don't be one, Raza. Okay. Sometimes I engage in, but sometimes I don't. Even you look as if you weren't buying any of this. Lights, I didn't buy all of it, and especially the thing about NASA coming clean. Yeah, if this guy works for the Chinese, he would never be able to talk. Where is his evidence? Can he prove his qualifications? I'm going to have to agree with Steve M on this. If you really probed this guy, he would fall apart. And Steve Mumbling says underneath, as they all do. Okay. I didn't buy all of it, no, but now I can't remember all the details. He did send me the details of what he was doing. Now, just because he's working on a project for the Chinese doesn't mean he would never be able to talk. If, for example, China is part of this disclosure thing. I mean, it could be that he is allowed to do this in the same way, you have people like David Fravor and that talking about the UFOs. As for the evidence, well, I can't remember all of what he said, and there are links into his YouTube channel where you can see things. You can see like a lot of details underneath of various videos he's done, which you could look at and see for yourself. Can he prove his qualifications? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, maybe he can answer now. Maybe he can post underneath an answer. But these are all right. These are legitimate questions, Lights, and you're quite right to ask them. But I don't believe if you just probed him, he'd fall apart. I think that remains to be seen. Raza, Lights again, says hydrogen into electricity. Surely hydrogen can produce power which could drive a generator to produce electricity as nuclear, coal, etc. does. But does hydrogen turn into electricity? No. I think that's actually what he meant. That's a shorthand way of saying exactly what you said. That there's some kind of some effect within hydrogen, like cold fusion, could produce power through a heat exchanger, which could drive a generator. Via a steam turbine, and produce electricity in the same way that nuclear and coal does, yeah. So, yeah, I see what you mean. Raza, right, 12207. Why not, says Lights, on, it's a timestamp.
Taking part in the suppression of this, and he says, yeah, it's, there is a lot of money involved, but anyway, that's my job. My job is to go out and bring them these machines.
Well, they worked on the M drive, like we were saying earlier.
Right.
Why not what? Sorry, I don't get it there. Sorry. All right, Raza says, Light says again here on Raza. 1:23:14 is a timestamp. There we go.
Something for fraud or something.
Oh dear.
And it's like that probably means it was actually working.
That's what usually happens. Yeah, they say it's.
Oh, I know the context. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's someone's accused of fraud for producing a machine that doesn't work when it actually does. Okay, or maybe a cure of a certain disease, which I can't say on YouTube. Sorry, Ben. I feel bad for leaving so many comments. Don't worry about it, Lights. More the merrier. But is a NASA employee, probably well paid under some sort of secrecy agreement, going to email this guy with what's going on where he works? If he can guarantee security and safety, he may well, yes. He may well. I mean, I myself was approached by this guy, Jack, and he was obviously under some sort of secrecy agreement. He's dead now, but he was under some sort of secrecy agreement, yet he came and approached me. I think he could trust me to keep his identity a secret. And to be honest, I never actually ever found out his identity. I often said, if I was ever interrogated under my two meetings with Jack, if I were ever interrogated about it, I wouldn't be able to say much more than I did in my public articles and videos. It's I could describe what he looks like, and that's about it. Which I didn't put into my reports, but that'd be about it. We have now Raza, and we have InsureTech, who said, "Sorry, Ben, but I can't watch this guy. His communication skills are painful." All right, I think he did all right. I quite enjoyed talking to him. But InsureTech, you can always go and watch something else. That's fine. Mrs. Balloons says here, what is this Moulin Rocks shenanigans? This is on Mysticism, a second reply to Stefan Molyneux. What is this Moulin Rocks shenanigans? Ben, that's a lot of feelings. We have real problems to sort out. Cats and dogs are living together. World War III is on the horizon. Aliens run the castle. What's the plan? Right, well, I'm aware of all that, Mrs. Balloons, but if your point is that I shouldn't be wasting my time with frivolities like mysticism and talking back to Stefan Molyneux, I don't agree. I think we all need time out. We all need time out for more abstract and more theoretical issues. I see, whenever I do this, people accuse me actually of ignoring the real problems, which I think is unfair. As if, you've got to, spend 24/7... Oh my God! I must keep looking at these problems. World War III, blah 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 blah. And then I'm looking away. I think I might go and eat. No! You've got to keep looking at it. You've got to keep doing something. You could drive yourself crazy that way. David Smith says underneath, thoughts and prayers. All right. I don't know exactly what he means in a reply to Mrs. Balloons about that. Same video. Mrs. Balloons says, I've just seen the short that Stefan made about mysticism. I understand him and I like that it was only 5 seconds. I'm concerned that all the soccer moms I knew now call themselves witches and starseeds. There is something weird going on. Alright. Yes. Mysticism is a gateway direct to mental illness. Alright. Well, I think if soccer mums want to call themselves witches and starseeds, that's fair enough, but I mean, they've got to have a good reason for it. I'm not against people becoming witches and starseeds. And in fact, I encourage them, their creativity, but there has to be good reason for it, I think. Mysticism. We have here Vema Crinan, who says, Mr. Moulinex, good one. I suppose he does mix stuff up a bit. He does, doesn't he? Nothing as it seems says on mysticism. Sigmund Freud was coked out. All right, and here's a link to a YouTube video. Let's have a look at this. What's this? Nothing as it seems. This is on mysticism. Wait for ad to clear. Ad clear. There we go. Right. Jimmy Dore live. Sigmund Freud was. Here we go. This is Jimmy Dore, who I quite like. Sigmund Freud was paid by Big Pharma to push coke. All right, and I don't think he's referring to the brown-coloured soft drink in a wasp waste bottle. Yeah. Oh dear, right. That's interesting. I mean, it doesn't surprise me nothing. Never heard of it before, but it doesn't surprise me. I'm not gonna. Obviously, I don't have time to watch that video now. Mysticism, or a second reply to Stefan Molyneux. Wild Fox 01 says, Stefan tries to project an image of himself as a creative thinker and open-minded philosopher, but at the same time refuses to entertain anything he regards out of the ordinary, and he's quick to brand people without any investigative research and knowledge on the subject. I think he is a creative thinker and open-minded philosopher. Sometimes it's not all the time. It's when I make these videos where I think he goes wrong. I don't think it's fair, though, to say he refuses to entertain anything he regards as out of the ordinary. He does. I think he does entertain it, but he often gets it wrong, hence this project. And he's quick to brand people. He does sometimes, yeah. I mean, there was this famous thing with Fritz. He did this interview with someone called Fritz, where he was just badgering them the whole time. It was very, very upsetting to listen to. I think he has disdain for certain groups of people and masterfully uses his array of diction to disguise it and convince others he's done all the thinking that's required to draw a conclusion. I think he has disdain for statists, things like that, so groups of people. But he does debate them, I mean, to be fair, he does debate them. So I think disdain is the wrong word. He's not like Ayn Rand, this woman who inspired him. I mean, Ayn Rand used to go on to TV interviews, and she would make the TV studio sign a disclaimer promising her that a certain list of people wouldn't be in the studio with her. And there was people people she disagreed with. She would say, these people must not be in my presence. That's a condition of me appearing on this show. Stefan would say, yeah, bring them in and we'll do a debate. That's what Stefan would say. So I think that's somewhat unfair. Self-improvement is about making changes to the way you think. It is indeed, yes. Stefan, I think, would agree with that. Vermacrinan 1286 says underneath, I agree and well said. I thought Ben was very charitable and kind to call him a philosopher, but then hearing the guy repeatedly bigging himself up and saying it'd be rotten shame for him to withhold his great gift as a philosopher from the world. He does blow his own trumpet a bit, doesn't he, McCrinnan? Just reinforces my opinion that Mr. Moulinex is more a narcissist than a philosopher. I understand why Ben likes him. The guy seems to be good at worm-tonguery. But I think all of what he says is insincere, manipulative BS. Well, it is. Some of it is insincere. Manipulative, I don't think is fair. I think insincere is unfair as well. I think it'd be more. So I like him because he likes worm-tonguery. I like disagreeing with him and unpicking his sophistry. Yeah, well, not sophistry, but mistakes. As I say, I think he is sincere. I don't think he's manipulative, but I think he gets it wrong. He gets a lot of things wrong, and he often speaks from a position where he doesn't know a lot about the subject he's talking about. And Neil says underneath, totally agree. He appears to know very little about mediums, psychics, seances, ghosts, and anything on the paranormal. Otherwise, he would know it goes a lot deeper than what he concludes. Moulinex makes things simple, and that includes the price. I remember that advert, yeah. He appears to know very little about it, which makes it's actually not. I found it actually quite easy to debunk him, because he does seem to be a bit kind of, yeah, superficial in terms of his research. Diego Rivera says on Mysticism, is it Ben Emlyn-Jones or Eminem? Yeah, I did my little bit of rap there, and Jamnoy says he sounded okay too. Yeah. I was going to do brap brap brap. Yeah, I did my little bit of little DJ impression. And Jamnoy says, "Big it up, MCBEJ." I thought it was a bit of. I was actually paraphrasing something Lenny Henry did in one of his sitcoms. Mysticism. Stephen Trueseeker. I think I can guess what Stephen's going to say about this. Ben, is this guy skeptic or something? Keep seeing his name in your videos. At one point, I think I looked him up. Still not sure what he's about. Oh, right, okay. That's more open-minded than I expected, Stephen. He calls himself a rational philosopher, a sort of atheist materialist, libertarian. He has several different things that he's about. I do have a lot of his name is in a lot of my videos because I'm always making replies to him. If you want to check out the link to his channel, I've got a link there to his YouTube, to his not YouTube, he's banned from YouTube, to his website, Stephen. You can check him out. And David says underneath, he's not a skeptic. Ben might call him a skeptic, but I hope not. He's more of a cynic. Yeah, well, I think I wouldn't call him either. I wouldn't call him a skeptic in the sense of the skeptic movement. No, definitely not. Cynic, possibly, certainly with this subject, yeah. I don't know about others. And Stephen says underneath, why waste your energy on a cynic? And the reason is the reason, Stephen, is because I believe that by deep diving and unpicking his errors in this particular program, I can enlighten people as a result. That's why I do it. And David says underneath, I'm not sure, maybe because they have a large audience, and if you can show the problem and have... Maybe because they have a large audience, and if you can show the problem and have even a few of them understand, then perhaps you're doing some kind of social good. Yeah, I think it's kind of, David, that's kind of paraphrasing what I just said. So yeah, I guess it all depends on what you're trying to do. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing, David, believe it or not. And we have here on Mysticism, Steve Sanson Art. Oh, right. Ben said sparring, S-P-A-R in capitals. I meant he meant going down to the local supermarket. Very good. Steve Sanderson Art. Let's have a look at your channel because I like art. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, you got you got like Steve Sanderson. Oh, you've got a lot of videos here where you're doing drawings and paintings. Yeah, it shows you doing these paintings and things here. No Scene, and there's various other paintings by Steve Sanderson. Oh, Stephen, well done, Stephen. Well done for being creative. Well done. Okay, so Yeah, and Vern McCrinnan laughs. V. McCrinnan laughs. And Keith Smith says underneath, Ben only drinks Co-op's own branded lager. No, I don't. Their own branded lager is disgusting. It's foul. It's like watered down Budweiser, if you can imagine such a thing. I think watered down Budweiser would basically be homeopathic lager. Okay. David Smith says on Mysticism, Molyneux is just someone who's stuck in their ways. He isn't open to changing anything about his beliefs. He's a dishonest pseudo-intellectual who has delusions about how great he is because a lot of people don't have the time or ability to think critically about things follow him. A bit like Jordan Peterson. Okay, that's unfair to both Molyneux and Jordan Peterson, I think. I think he's not stuck in his ways. He's always making videos, which is why I was wrong about, including atheism. He says he's wrong about atheism. He does change his beliefs. He may be, if you mean he's not formally qualified in academia, that's true, but that doesn't make someone a pseudo-intellectual. Dishonest, again, I don't think he's dishonest. I think he's wrong, but I don't detect it as being a result of any deliberate distortion about his position. I think that's it. Raza, TJ UK. Isn't Raza the guy whose friend used to go out collecting free energy devices for NASA? Yes. I can't remember the details, but yes, he was. Mysticism, TK UK. Ben has driven himself mad. I must have done, haven't I? But according to Stefan's definition, if he's right, then yes. Oh, we have now David Smith. Let's have a look. This is on Reply to Comments 82. Right, here we go. Equality isn't about people being the same, Ben. Well, really, that's a right-wing lie that's pushed. It's about people having the same access to justice, social care, technology, education, healthy foods, etc. It's got nothing to do with anything being the same. You have some fundamental misunderstandings. Alright, well, we certainly have a fundamental difference in definition. Because I agree that everyone should have the same access to justice, social care, and all those other things, etc. I do agree with that. Okay, so we've got a long reply. David Smith is replying to his own comment. When you start talking about control from the New World Order, I assume, it doesn't make sense to me. The views you support are controlling. No abortion. Okay, that's actually not control. That's not controlling. No abortion is protecting people from being killed. So you're freeing, to be controlling is to support abortion, because then you're controlling people in their most fundamental right of all, is whether to live or die. You're basically committing murder, and the only reason you're getting away with it is because the people involved are too young to protest. No freedom of movement. I'm in favour of freedom of movement, David, but what I disagree with is people being picked up on an industrial scale and moved to another country through force or inducement. That's not freedom of movement. Okay. Reduction in trans education. Yes, I'm against that because I believe. Well, no. I believe I would be opposed to trans education, whatever that means, for anyone under the age of 18. So I'm against that. I think it should be, if you're over 18, I think that's fair enough. Okay. Not supporting ideas that could reduce climate change, etc. I do support ideas that could reduce climate change. I do. I support, the stabilisation of solar flares and the sun. I support those. There's nothing I can do about it. The sun does what it wants. It has nothing to do with. There's nothing any humans could do about it. I support the ideas that volcanoes should not erupt. If a volcano erupts, the thing is, volcanoes erupt due to natural geological forces. So, it's to support the idea. It's like saying, could you support the idea of this? Do you support this tsunami coming towards you at 100 miles an hour? No, it's something that I don't have any control over. I would like to see fewer volcanoes erupting, therefore reducing climate change. Because climate change does impact people, does impact people very badly. When Mount St. Helens erupted, it caused temporarily a 2.5 degree drop in world temperatures, which did result in, for example, in this country, a number of people froze to death. But, I can't help that. Mount St. Helens erupted without my permission, without anyone's permission, and volcanoes always do. We can't control volcanoes, we can't control the sun. Therefore, whether climate changes or not is something that we can't do anything about. These all impact people in really negative ways. They cause suffering. Right. Abortion causes suffering, yes. Firstly, the person who is killed is died. They may not realise they've suffered, but they are suffering. It's suffering to have your life taken from you. If someone could kill you very quickly, they could detonate a nuclear bomb 5 feet away from you. You'd be dead before you knew it because your body would be vaporised. That's still murder. That's still suffering. That's, you know, you lose your life. That's suffering. A child that's aborted suffers in that sense. Freedom movement causes. If I stop freedom of movement, I'm not against freedom of movement. I'm against people being picked up and transported from Albania to the south coast of England. Yes, but how does it impact people in a positive way when they're on a rubber dinghy in the middle of the English Channel and it overturns in a large wave? I think those people, before they finally sink to the bottom of the sea, suffer, David. You don't define exactly what trans education is. I believe it should not be taught to children at school. Okay, I think if it does, I think that causes suffering. You've been fed these lies like how being woke is bad. Okay, I haven't been fed that lie. I don't think it's a lie. I've come to the conclusion that woke is bad. The people who tell you that attach contradictory labels to words and positions like woke. Well, again, we're going on to definitions again. Okay. Then they attack label woke rather than engage with the ideas because they know people like you will probably go, hold on a minute, I agree with that. Okay, well let's explore that. What is it you think they attach the label to, which you think I'd agree with? I found a great explanation about how the right-wing propagandists propagandise that being anything other than hard right is ushering in the end of the world, and how it helps create many conspiracy theories that take on cult-like followings based on misinformation like the Trump issue. Okay. If you find that explanation, feel free to share it with me, and I believe you have, because we're going to come on to that later. I don't think that anything other than what the hard right is ushering is the end of the world. I don't think if you have a belief that's turning into a cult-like phenomena, whether you're a skeptic or a conspiracy theorist, I think that's wrong. And the word misinformation, I tend to switch off when I hear that, because it tends to be, we don't want people questioning our idea. But the Trump issue, well, you don't specify it, and indeed we can't talk about all of them on YouTube, but I have covered this, and I expect we'll disagree. If I can find it, I'll include to you so you can never bother to watch it, lol. I've watched 2 of those videos, no, I've watched 3 of those videos almost, actually. I class myself as left-leaning. I don't care what colour skin of my future generations of the UK have. I don't care if they're all white or if they all look like jam noise. Do you care about that? I don't care if it's the case that a large percentage of the population is from immigration. Why is that a problem? Are they really failing to integrate? What does that mean? I don't care about losing culture, whatever that means. Okay. I don't have any control about what the skin of future generations look like, because in a world where we all move around, we're going to turn out the way we want. I think people who are who are white look beautiful. I think people who are black look beautiful. I think some people who are mixed race look beautiful. People are going to be what they are in future generations long after I'm dead. And in a world where we can get on a plane and travel to Australia in a few hours, people are going to meet who never met before. People are going to fall in love and have children who never would have in past times. Okay, that is going to affect the demographic makeup of the racial DNA makeup of the human species. That's inevitable, and I'm not against it. But I am against the forced busing, to use that word, of people from one country to another. If you don't know what busing is, look it up. It refers to schools in 1950s United States. I don't care if they're white or they all look like jam noise. Well, you know, if they all look like jam noise, I think we red-blooded blokes will be in hog heaven, won't we? Do you care about that? No, I don't care. I think you are misrepresenting me again. I don't care if it's the case that a large percentage of the population is from immigration. If it's a natural movement of people, I don't either. But the thing is, the percentage of population from immigration is not as a result of natural population shift based on individual will. It's based on an industrialised forced movement of people organised from the top down by government. Why is that a problem? Are they really failing to integrate? Yes, they are, and they're meant not to. They're meant to fail to integrate. That's the whole point. The design is to take away, change the world so there are not separate countries. and instead you have like the entire world is made up of different cultures that are always at war with each other, so that the government can have total control of them. The end result is, I think, for people who are actually all genetically modified. What does that mean? It means that we all respect each other, basically, integration. I don't care about losing culture, whatever that means. We see, I do. I think losing culture is a terrible thing, because we live in a world where there's an incredible amount of human biodiversity, and indeed diversity in other areas of creativity. I wouldn't want children in Africa to be forced to learn about Posh and Becks. I'd be happy for them to learn about African folk tales. I'd be very opposed to them learning about anything else. And I ask the same for people in Europe. I do care about society improving. So do I. More equality. All right, well, under your definition of equality, I agree. All right, if people having the same access, the same access to justice, social care, technology, education, healthy foods. Okay, if that's your definition of equality, I agree with you. More health, yes, more well-being, improved living conditions, all great stuff. Totally, I'm with you on that 100%. You can't do that by telling others that it's too bad they weren't born in the right place or don't have the right skin tone or culture to have a shot at a better life. Right, that is. You're not even addressing me now. You're addressing someone completely different. If you really think that I even suggested that, David. Cultures and societies always change over time. We preserve them in history books and videos. They change naturally over time, yes, but in this case, they're being engineered, David, and that's what I'm opposed to. And these history books and videos you refer to are being burnt. Sometimes literally, but books are being thrown into braziers because the glue in the binding might be poisonous, and videos are vanishing from the internet. All right. And now you're going to tell me that I never answer any of your points, aren't you? I've got another long comment here from David. Alright. Okay. The whole world lives in a perpetual state of temporal inefficiency. What does that mean? Temporal to do with time inefficiency. It exists in an artificially scarce, ideologically conservative mental model that assumes infinite growth to be applicable. Right, and infinite. Its foundational framework perpetuates nothing more than a self-interested, nearsighted, competitive battle royale amongst every agent of its system. It is by default mathematically unequal and thus unstable. Firstly, artificially scarce. I'm not sure I understand this paragraph here. Infinite growth to be applicable. Infinite growth now. Infinite growth is possible. Well, not infinite growth, but growth beyond what the left claims is possible. Because the left sees the economy as like a pie, and you're cutting slices of it. And some people get bigger pie slices than the other. The white men get the biggest slice, and everyone else gets smaller slices. And they say, well, let's shift that around so everyone gets an equal slice. And they joke about people. They joke about the Austrian economics. There's like. The Austrian economist goes. There's a joke. An Austrian economist goes up to a pizza parlor and says, "Give me an extra large one." And he says, "And cut it into 6 slices." And then he says, "6 slices, sir. We normally cut them into just 4 slices." He says, "I know, but I'm hungry. I want something more." It's a joke, but I mean, you see, that's actually taking a piss out of the idea of infinite or much more economic growth than is possible. Obviously, we live on a finite planet, but there's the universe out there. That's infinite. The rest of it, I don't understand. All political ideologies are inherently corrupt unless they assume a culture of emergence and falsifiability. I don't know what you mean by emergence, but falsifiability is, yes, everything needs to have conditions set on it, which means that under certain conditions you could falsify them. Yes, anything else is unfalsifiable. In my skeptic talk, I talk about unfalsifiable hypotheses, don't I? The clown's day off fallacy is an unfalsifiable hypothesis. The unwillingness to set a ceiling on coincidence theory is unfalsifiable. Yeah. We could design a society with a totally different value system and an approach to life, but we will likely not do so until some dramatic left-field event or condition occurs, and it is far too late. Right. You be specific about what this kind of society you would design. Be it war, chaotic societal debt collapse, or environmental destruction. Yes, all of which are artificial, I should point out. Human beings are turning out to be a shameful evolutionary cul-de-sac. Oh, no, you're not going to give me this James Lovelock shit, are you? Please don't. Because, look, all those things, war, chaotic societal debt collapse, and environmental destruction, are being engineered by the deep state for reasons I've explained many times. You ask yourself why that is. Human beings aren't evil. Human beings, like all life, like all organisms, it's in our interest to evolve to fit in with our environment. If we don't do that, you've got to ask why. And people are saying, well, we're just, the standard answer now is there's something wrong with us. We're sort of something, as you say, an evolutionary cul-de-sac. This is not an unpopular idea in the sort of extreme green movements, like the vehemence, the voluntary human extinction movements, or the people calling for reduced population, things like that. Someone's nose is hurting again. The culture has a proneness for disinformation and a general disconcern towards sympathetic knowledge in the form of science, effective organisation, logical technical methodologies, or maximisation of utility. Has a proneness to disinformation and general concern towards those things: science, effective organisation, and those other things. I'm not against those things, and I don't think if culture has a disinformation and general disconcern towards those things, maybe it's for a reason that is intentional. At least one that doesn't assume a money sequence of value over life sequence, or value or makes an attempt to compute infinite growth economics in a fractional reserve lending model. All right, money sequence of value over life sequence of value. I'm not sure what that means. Is that an economic term? Money sequence of value over life. I value life more than money. An attempt to compute infinite growth economics in a fractional reserve lending world. Well, yeah, that's not to be confused with the pizza analogy and the joke I made. Okay, a fractional reserve lending model is not infinite growth. Fractional reserve lending model is essentially it's creating exhaust fumes and saying it's fuel. It's saying well, here's money, and so therefore it equals capital. It doesn't. Infinite growth economics means you can generate more capital. You can make the pizza bigger, literally. Not just you cook one pizza in the oven and then create lots of cardboard pizzas and put them out on the table. That's what fractional reserve lending is. That's what that model is. That's not growth economics. Growth economics is being able to cook more pizzas, generate more capital. In other words, people are mostly unable to consider out-system ideals and will not likely stop another extinction event. Right, what is an out-system ideal? I don't know. Does that mean, something beyond outside the system an ideal? Well, I do. I mean, UFO disclosure is an out-system ideal, if I understand what that word means. And likely not stop another extinction event. I think we can stop another extinction event, but the only way to do it is now. I think the only way to do it now is to stop the New World Order. Not because they didn't receive an education, quote unquote, but because the education itself is subject to extreme limits of debate and only contains in-system feedback loops. Well, I have to agree with you there, yes. Try going into school and talking about the kind of things I do. Your parents will get a letter from the teacher asking you not to. The drive to know and understand these fundamental concepts in general is scarce. It's scarce but not unknown. I'm doing it, David. But this is because it is not built into the framework of the social value systems themselves. No, it's built into more popular and colloquial systems, like social media. It is a positive feedback loop that has been perpetrated without much self-awareness from the agents or actors within the system for a long time. You must be joking. They've done it with full self-awareness. They know exactly what they're doing, David, and they're doing it deliberately. Likely since the core inflection point of the Neolithic Revolution, which involved patterns and characteristics of permanent settlements, as well as general marketization tactics among people. Yeah, the Neolithic is people call this the birth of civilization when we started farming in the Neolithic era, which is roughly like the 12th or 11th millennium BC. it's roughly when the Ice Age ended. Some people point that as the rise of the Illuminati, which I think it did in Atlantis. I think Atlantis did have the Illuminati rose within Atlantis. There's lots of myths across the world about this, about how we fell from grace. I mean, Atlantis essentially is the same story as Adam and Eve. It's the same story as Manu in India. It's the same story as Cantref y Gwaelod in Wales. There's a high culture, a virtuous culture, a culture that's wise, that somehow becomes corrupt, and it allows in a snake into the garden, to continue the analogy of one of those myths, which is essentially symbolic of the Illuminati. Now, the entire Neolithic, you can't say that it involves the entire Neolithic, because, of course, there are Neolithic people still alive today in places like in New Guinea, in the Amazon jungle. They don't have a local branch of the Freemasons, 33rd degree. I mean, the Illuminati did not come to the entire Neolithic people. It grew up in city-states like Atlantis, and, following the fall of Atlantis, places like Egypt and Sumer. This also... But I should point out, sorry, I didn't finish the point. This is not, you say it's involved patterns and characteristics of permanent settlements and general marketization tactics. That was not the rise of the Illuminati-occupied world. There's no reason why those things will inevitably result into the world we see today, David. It's not. I'm doing so many replies to you, I need to do my own video and reply to you. And I don't mind doing that, actually, because I do like your comments. As much as I disagree with them, I think they're quite interesting. I think the Neolithic could easily have evolved into a sophisticated extra Illuminati culture. It could. Anyway, we'll carry on. This is also all affected by general stress capitals within the same society, just described, more precisely relating to socio-economic inequality as a guaranteed outcome, as it is structurally inherent within the corporatocracy orientated profit, acumen and function. Right, at stress, definitely. Our society is a stress production line, as David Icke calls it. Relating now, again, you use the word inequality. I think you and I have two different definitions of that, but to use your definition, I completely agree. Our world, this world we live in, has your definition of socio-economic inequality as a guaranteed outcome. It does, as it is structurally inherent within the corporatocracy oriented profit, acumen and function. Yes, the corporatocracy is not to be confused with capitalism. The corporatocracy is essentially a feudal, almost... I mean, Kim Stanley Robinson uses the word Götterdämmerung, the twilight of the gods. He's a good author, by the way, even though he's a greenie and a lefty. Yeah, I mean, profit, acumen and function. In other words, make a lot of money, but do that without thinking long term. So pay your staff as little as you can. Pay them get call centers in India which pay 5p an hour. That's absolutely fine because you make more money. Gets kids to make your t-shirts in sweatshops, which you can then sell to rich Westerners for 50 quid because they've got Nike on them or something. Yeah, that's corporatocracy profit obsession. Now, in capitalism, it's different. You would never underpay your staff in a true capitalist society, because you would want them to be able to buy your products. You'd also want them to be motivated and happy to make good products, which are competitive in a free market. Right, we'll carry on. With no other means of survival, everyone climbs an infinite ladder of competition on top of each other, thus creating infinitely more patterns of destabilization and violence. Yes, basically, you're quite right there. Although I think you and I have a differing cause on the modern pathological world we live in. I think you and I have a disagree over the cause, but there's no doubt that is the effect. All mental health issues today are the final screws themselves that barricade the very doors to access abundance and healthy biopsychosocial makeups in a world that supports all people. That's very poetic. That's a lovely poetic way of putting it, David. And yes, I think the majority of mental health, not all, I mean there is such a thing as biological mental health, but the majority of mental illness now is caused by the social violence that you describe and we both agree exists. They barricade the very doors to access abundance and healthy. The screws them. Yeah, you put it very poetically, and I agree. I don't know what to add to that. It's not a curse or affliction. It's not a wild conspiracy. It's not an inherent human nature damnation. It's not that. No, it is a wild conspiracy. Well, it's a conspiracy, not wild. It is. You got to understand, David. And you don't. I know you won't agree, but this is intentional. That the ship is being sunk. The ship is not sinking, and we're struggling to get into the lifeboats. The ship has been scuttled by the captain. And he's forcing us all to get into the lifeboats and letting half the world drown, so he can run a much tighter ship aboard those lifeboats. And the only reason the ship is sinking because it is being scuttled. It's not an inherent new human nature damnation. No, I mean, I think I've just explained that, haven't I? A curse or affliction. Well, it's a curse or affliction to suffer this. I don't believe it is as a result of the general Neolithic thing that you talked about. It's just a poorly managed social system that is run by mostly pseudo-intellectual sociopaths and maintained by a majority's public participation of meta-magical and anti-economic thought processes. Right. It's not a poorly managed social system. It's a social system that's managed perfectly by people who want exactly the kind of destructive human world that we have. Pseudo-intellectual sociopaths. They're certainly sociopaths, and yes, pseudo-intellectual, yes, too. Maintained by majorities' public participation. Yes, majorities, of meta-magical. Meta-magical, I don't know what the word means. Meta meaning beyond magical, or meta-magical. I'm not, magical, of course, I understand as maybe thought that's not logical. Anti-economic thought processes. Well, yeah, I mean, most people, they read the economics report, the financial report, and they go, what does that mean? It's like a language of its own. I mean, I only used to watch it because I fancied Tanya Beckett, and now she's gone, and they got some bearded bloke doing it who's utterly unappealing sexually. So I don't watch it anymore. But, I've read E.F. Schumacher, so I think I do understand a bit about economics. His book Small is Beautiful. I do recommend that book. It's really good. Anyway, that's the end of that very long comment. Right, David Smith says, this is what I mean when I suggest you call in to argue your skepticism case, Ben. Someone actually did something similar this week. Right, what's this? It's a YouTube share. Right. Oh, shit, let's see. Seems I'm in the mood of replying to David. Let's have a look, shall we? What's this?
Jack in Maryland is a
the line. This is Matt Dillahunty. I know Matt Dillahunty. I've watched this, David. I have watched this. Look, I'm subscribed. Look. Can you see? Subscribed.
Argument against skepticism and for the supernatural. That's two different arguments, I would think.
See,
because
him.
I'm going to give
David. I'm not going to go on too long with this, but I'm going to watch a bit of this because we seem to, I'm in the mood for replying to you.
Time here, Jack, but you do realize that an argument for the supernatural and an argument against skepticism has to be two different arguments, because all skepticism is wanting to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible.
No, he's wrong there, David. He's wrong because Matt is making the same point you are. And this may come down to definitions of skepticism. How are we going? 2 minutes, right? This may come down simply to definitions of skepticism, but it is not two arguments, because skepticism, philosophical skepticism is the same. It is the same thing.
So you can do whichever one you want first. You can either present an argument against skepticism or an argument for the supernatural.
I should clarify, against skepticism means against the skeptic movement and its closed-mindedness towards the supernatural.
I don't know how you could do. You could try to do both at the same time, but I don't see that.
I know it sounds strange. I'm aware. By the way, full disclosure, I have called in before. Jimmy, I'm glad you're feeling better.
David, I agree with you. I really should talk. I'm actually going to stop screen sharing now because it's just audio really that counts. But if I'd used, I'm using OBS at the moment and not StreamYard. Let me just let them carry on.
Didn't really get to see the beginning of the show, but I'm glad you're back.
Word.
And what'd you say?
I just said word.
Word.
It's my favorite word.
Word. Yeah. Yeah, so just for clarity's sake, I want to be clear when I say that I have an argument against skepticism. I'm talking about the very specific sort of skepticism that seems to be laid out. I assume shared both by.
Good. He's making the point that I would make. Oops,
Jimmy, you and Matt, regarding the validity of testimonial evidence.
Yeah.
And as far as doing it at the same time, go ahead.
So, first of all, skepticism is a philosophical position of wanting to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, and using the.
Let's see.
What we're doing.
No, it's still look, David. This goes on quite a long time, and I don't really have. I can't really include this as part. I can't really include this as part of this particular comments reply video. But I will watch that because already I can see this discussion developing in a way that I really understand and gel with. So I'm actually going to give you a love heart. I don't give David many, but I'm going to watch the rest of that. And then maybe I might even do a comments reply video to it. So, David, thank you very much. Do you believe me? Oh, that's the end, I think. Okay. Do you believe me when I tell you you are turning into one of the best commenters on this particular video? You might end up being kind of man of the match by the time I finished it. All right, guys and gals, we are on to our number 4, and we are now on Awakening Expo 2023. Jamnoy72, hey Soul Sister, how you doing? That was so interesting, bro. It looked fun there. Oh my God, Pope's looking well old, isn't he? Yeah. Oh, and Awakening Expo 2023 again. And Jamnoy says here, I gave her a love heart for this. 138.23. Now what's that? Who's this?
And when you do the steps, I've been doing.
Oh right, that's Lorraine. Oh bless her, what a beautiful soul, Lorraine. Yeah, Lorraine's lovely. Yeah, she's a real kind of like passionate person who deals with all this. As much as I disagree with her on a lot of things, I think she's really into this because she believes it. She really does. If you go to conferences, Jackie, you'll bump into her a lot. Right, reply to comments 82. David Smith says, did you see the latest James Webb discovery published by the BBC? Possible signs of life detected on a distant planet. Where's the cover-up? Yes, I did, David, see that. Where's the cover-up? Well, there is no cover-up. Have you watched my... Actually, I sent you a link last week. I sent you a link last week to my... Well, there's several different versions, but this is the best one. It's not on my channel. It's on Sarah Adams' channel. It's me talking at a WakeCon in 2017. Let me do it again. Let me do it again for you, because it's a very, very good one. There we go, right. Basically, I analyze. It's called SETI and UFOs, I think. I think it's called SETI and UFOs. And it's a really interesting thing. It's a really, really great event organised by Tajinder Gill. I mean, I mentioned it actually in the Awakening thing, when I went to Awakening. Here we go. Right. Can I send you this again, David? Ben Emlyn-Jones at a WakeCon 27 recording. Now, there it is. There's the URL. You can find it. You can find it on YouTube as well. Here it is. There you see?
Eridani. And he did it because
it's on Sarah R. Adams' YouTube channel, AwakeCon 2017, Ben Emlyn-Jones, SETI and UFOs. Now, if you watch that video, right, you will understand that I don't believe that something like this would be covered up, and I explain exactly why. It's not the same as UFOs. It's not the same. It's a completely different situation to discovering life on a distant world is a completely different situation to something crashing on the Earth and things like that. Please do watch that video because I explain it all in there, David. Please, it's all very comprehensive. It's only like how long is it? It's only it's just over an hour long, hour and 4 minutes, and it explains everything. It's news like that which gets me excited. Some ex-government employee making claims that aren't backed up, unfortunately doesn't, no matter how much I want them to be true. All right, both make me excited, David, and I do want both to be true, and I think what the ex-government employee is saying is true, for reasons I explain, even though he hasn't backed it up yet. And funny enough, I actually say here underneath, Have you seen my... I actually say in text, have you seen my SETI talk? I said SETI success and ufology success help each other out. Also, do you read HPANWO Voice? I've done a conspiracy theory deconversion course. All right. Gave the SETI video a listen. All right, did you, David? Then why did you ask the question that you did? Was interesting at first, but I felt it developed into conspiracy, somewhat expected. Interesting views about the Drake equation. I don't think it holds much weight for me, as we only have a sample size currently of 1. Hence, I'm excited with the potential discovery by JW. I see, David, so you have watched that video I've just showed you. In that case, why did you ask the question, where's the cover-up? Because you'll know, therefore, that, the difference. Keith Smith says on Mysticism, second reply to Stephen Molyneux, Ben, I remember your adventure wearing your cricket helmet. Oh, Keith, it's a classic, isn't it? Yes, when I went to Watford. David Smith says here, setting UFOs. I assume you mean this video, so I'll give it a listen. I say in text underneath, yes, although there's a better one. This is a better one. And so I send him a link to the video I've just shown him. Oxford Graffiti 5, Hugo Rune. Nice one, Ben. Thanks you for showing. Better than my back garden. Oh, great, Hugo. That's cool. That really is. That's Oxford Graffiti 5. Dark Corners UK. Love your graffiti videos. Thank you very much, Dark Corners. I'm glad you enjoy them. Diego Rivera says on Oxford Graffiti 5, I prefer the National Gallery. All right. Well, to be honest, yeah. I mean, that's different. That's a different thing. However, this doesn't. I don't think that the folk art we see is. It's different from that. I like both, I think. Oxford Graffiti 5. Nice one, Ben. Good vid. Good. It's G-U-D and vid. I think that means something in Swedish, doesn't it? Like cheers or something. I don't know. Good vid. Oxford Graffiti 5. Dark Corners UK. That life and death mural is insane. Do you mean? You think you mean the one on the Littlemore subway? Yes, it is. Oh, we now have a thread on Oxford Graffiti 5. Seth Aaron Fletcher said, will you be doing a live video about the Mexican aliens in the news recently? Yeah. And of course loads of people have been asking me that question. And I said in text, I explained what I did, that I put a brief article on the HPANWO Voice, but I didn't want to say anything yet. And he says, okay, thanks. And Steve Mumbling says, deleted the truth already? Shame on you. I don't know what he means by deleted the truth. I haven't deleted any truth. I just said I'm going to leave it. I mean, as you know, I have actually done an entire live stream about this subject. And I say, Steve, what do you say to my offer for a debate? Right. Oh, and then he goes on. Right. Then we have the discussion with. I had the discussion there with Steve Mumming. I've already outlined about what he says about whether I said here again, no, I didn't believe we lose. If you want to say so during our debate, that's fine, but apart from that, I don't want to address that subject. And Steve says here, did you research anything I said? If you do, you'll find everything I said was correct. I research what you lot tell me and invariably find it's complete and utter rubbish. Alan said to Arnold Douglas was managing director of Kodak. He wasn't. Alan said NASA never published the radiation doses of the Apollo crew. They did. You know yourself, everything Henderson said was a complete and utter drivel. You know satellite TV and satellite communications are real, don't you? Yes, I do. This completely disproves Henderson's nonsense about radio signals reflecting off the ionosphere back to Earth and radio signals not being able to penetrate the Van Allen radiation belts. Why don't you discuss it with him and correct him? Alan said Apollo, didn't you? Well, Steve, because you did, Steve. You did that. Alan said Apollo didn't use special film. They did. And I got Alan to admit as much. Now they see, we've been through that. That doesn't disprove the experiment he did. The film sample he held up was 35mm. Apollo used 70mm film. He said the cameras they used were unmodified. Hasselblad said they were modified. But did Marcus say that? Because it's common knowledge that Hasselblad created modified cameras. I left links to the camera modifications published by Hasselblad, the special film, communication equipment used by NASA, crew radiation data, satellite communications, altitude of the geostationary satellites, 23,000 miles, the distance to the outer edge of the Van Allen radiation belts, compared, yes, based on what measurement? The one in 1961, 15,300 miles, etc. Ed Con Neil's channel, and he deleted every time. Why is that? Why are you determined to ignore the truth? You lost. You were slaughtered. Have the decency to admit it. And he carries on. Oh, he just completely repeats he kind of repeats what he said before. But he says, why do you feel you have to delete this comment? That should be telling you something, don't you think? Steve, shut up. I didn't delete your comment. I can see both of them here. I've just read them out. So Steve, if you want to say that, that's fine, right? If you want to make that part of your opening statement to our debate, fine. But I'm just asking, could we move on to a different subject rather than this one? It's just for the sake of variety. I want to make it different to the last time we did a live debate on the Apollo detectives. Oxford Graffiti 5. Wayne Model Builder says, hey, very off topic, but by any chance of doing a picture on the recent pictures of the American alien corpse? Maybe giving us a bit of background, as there's not much being released, but it looks interesting. Hope you're well. Hey, Wayne Model Builder. Yes, I've actually done a 5.5 hour live stream about that. I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, of course I will. And we now have someone on 5, Graffiti 5. He's just called 77762. Hi Ben, how about a HPANWO meetup at Christmas in Oxford for all the subscribers? And Neil says Ben's paying. And 777 says, no, everyone funds themselves. Ben names the pub and gives us a date and time and gives us a good 3 months to budget for organising our trips to Oxford and arrange accommodation. A night of woo, conspiracy booze and a nice kebab. And Neil says, sounds like it might evolve into a Dreaming Sources conference. What do you think, Ben? I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, why not? It doesn't have to be Oxford, though. Maybe somewhere a bit more convenient. And then, why should I be the one that gets to stay in my own home? Maybe find out where everyone is and organise something centrally. Would that be alright? Oxford Graffiti 5. That's some cool art. Is it against the law to do graffiti? That deer must have had a fawn in the long grass. Yeah, may well have done, Stephen. The deer was sort of looking very, very carefully over at me. That grass has all been cut now, so the deer are now staying in the other field, which is longer. It's not against the law to do graffiti, and in fact, it is. There are certain areas you're not allowed to deface, and that's considered defacement. But most public walls you can put something up, and a lot of these artworks, this artwork is actually done with council commission. Although I think that someone said that there's some problem with that, and they gave me a card which I've lost. Anyway, back to the subject briefly about a meetup. I think that's fair enough, but I think it should be private. I just want to keep trolls away, so I want it to be private between myself and people I know, regular commenters, people like that. Maybe we could have it somewhere near Hugo Rune, because he can't travel very far, something like that. Oxford Graffiti 5, Keith Smith. Looks like a cottaging dogging spot. All right. I don't know. I mean, if they are, I wouldn't know about little things like that. But never mind. Anyway, Blogger526 says, Stefan obviously hasn't... This is on mysticism. Stefan obviously hasn't read Magic Mysticism and the Molecule, The Search for Sentient Intelligence from Other Worlds by Micah Hanks. It might change his opinion on some of his views. Blogger, I really do get a big sensation that book is not on his shelf. I really do. Yeah. I've not read the book, but Micah is a very intelligent guy and very interesting guy, and I'm a big fan of his radio show and his YouTube channel. So, yeah, it's pretty clear from what Stefan said that he has not looked into any of that. Mysticism, Crafty Nihilist said, I always try to listen to these, but it's no good. I can't stand the arrogant git. To thought I better add, I'm talking about Moulinex before some trolls tries to be funny. Yawn. Yeah, I can guess who you're talking about, Crafty. I don't think you meant me, did you, darling? No, you didn't. Right, where we have oh god, this is Hillary Drinkwater. Hillary, I'm sorry, I can't reply to your comments. This is nothing personal, it's nothing against the content or your conduct in any way. It's that you are completely and utterly incoherent. I can't understand a word you're saying. That might be just me. It may be simply a difference of intellect and difference of understanding streams. I'm not calling you, it's not a criticism of you. I just can't understand what damn word you're saying. Mexico Aliens livestream. New video. Original Dwarn Boy says, Why is this such a surprise? New species are found every year, so why not a species from thousands of years ago? Doesn't mean to say they're alien, just another life form that lived on Earth. Just a thought. Yes, a very interesting thought, original Dwarn Boy. Much appreciated. Get a love heart for that. Because yes, we shouldn't assume these are extraterrestrial. Just like the Mesa Verde mummy from the which caused the hoo-ha over the Roswell slides, which completely distracted from the real point that was made. That could possibly be a human-alien hybrid. I mean, the Star Child skull, there is evidence to suggest its DNA is not of this Earth. Yet, in terms of the Mesa Verde mummy, that might simply be some kind of stream of human development that we don't know about. I mean, like Bigfoot, which is a primate. It's an earlier development of primate alongside gorillas, chimps, etc. Yeah. So good point. Yeah. Mexico and Aliens live stream. Emlyn-Jones, the lady with the magic voice. Having come so many light years from Earth, the real miracle to me is that Russell has somewhat a southeastern English accent. A southeastern English accent, yeah. Well, Rhiannon, lots of planets have southeasts, and maybe he came from somewhere so far away that by accidental chance, England has been recreated on another world. Also, a message for Piper and anyone else who doubts Ben's height. He's definitely at least 6'1". I'm 5'9". He's much taller than me. Yes. Well, Piper was a troll, and I got rid of them. Yeah. I know exactly who Piper was. Mexico Aliens livestream. Brett Riverboat said, "The only way disclosure will ever happen is if an alien spacecraft hovers above a major city in daylight. If not, it'll never happen after the last 5 days." I don't believe that's the only way disclosure will happen. I also believe that if an alien spacecraft hovered over a major city, some people would still be in denial. I mean, isn't that essentially what happened with the Phoenix Lights? Honestly, the skeptics are so... This is why we're going back to David Smith and the skeptic points here. Honestly, I swear to you, if the proverbial landed on the proverbial, what would Neil deGrasse Tyson say? "Oh, I was wrong all along, that's an alien." No, he would say, "That's Joe Biden's mobility scooter, can't you see?" Yeah. Awakening Expo 2023. Snarnock said, Did Tajinder smoke in the car during the journeys? I'm not sure I should answer that to Snarnock. Why do you ask? Have you been in the car with Tajinder? Woody Black says on Mysticism, "Wait, you want to debate Steve Mumbling again? Or is this an old video?" No, Woody, I do want to debate him again, and I've offered some conditions. This wouldn't be unconditional. There was one condition I would specify, so we'll stipulate. Apart from that, I'm quite happy to talk about it, like I explained in the video. Right, Rendlesham Forest non-human tour. Okay, on. The lady around 27 minutes in saying that it was her truth. Another example of irrational thinking or poor wording. Alright, you haven't got a timestamp. I'm just going to try and find it. David. Right, because I just want to get this right, exactly what she said. I think I know who you mean, 27 minutes in. I think it might have been that lady Angela. Let's find the timestamp.
Yeah, I mean, anybody else's truth. Well, not everyone believes that, but I think that's actually...
hang on, here we go, everyone else's truth.
Frequencies not actually die, we just change our frequency. And then when our frequency, if we're still in our body, is elevated for whatever reason, might be grief, might be something else, you can see it. Yes, I think that's true. Yes, I think that's very true. It's my truth. Yeah, I mean...
All right, I guess I get what you're saying. Right, David, saying it's her truth. Another example of irrational thinking or poor wording. I think it's the latter, David. I don't think it's irrational, because what she said, she was actually suggesting something. In other words, posing I don't know if it's a hypothesis, posing a possibility. She's putting forward a logical equation. And maybe she used language that you wouldn't use. I think what she meant by her truth was, this is what I have found through my own contemplation or research. I think that's what she meant. So yeah, I mean, irrational thinking. It says here, reality, David continues, reality is whatever reality is. I agree, David. We live in a shared reality. We all live in the same objective world, David. That's why when you need to go to a location and use a map, you should get to the same place as everyone else. Yes. There isn't a "this is my truth for navigation." Perhaps she means personal experiences, which make more sense. It's not good evidence, though. Yeah, I do think she means that, personal experiences, and indeed her own personal contemplation and her own, the conclusions she's reached from her own research. Not good evidence. Well, her walking through a forest telling me wasn't. No, but she may have come about good evidence in another way. Right, Professor Brian Cox hates you. This is an old video. This is an old comedy video that I'm very proud of. And Tadpole 9183, who I know who that is because I know them on Facebook, says, and laughs. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Reply to comment 82. Right, the Lights Will Low has here a timestamp. All right, 1:51:01. Right, let's have a look. To be humble and open. All right, I know what you're saying now. I know what you're saying. The fact was there was a lot of obstacles put in the path of this particular event, and in my view it is suspicious. Yes, it is. Now, it's not delusions of grandeur. Oh, we're talking about Gary, right, yes. And Light says, I think this is not about Gary, but the Forestry Commission stopping Derek and his healing. Yeah, this has come up before. David Smith mentioned it. Certainly Derek has received an awful lot of opposition. Now, most of this opposition actually came from various individuals, the usual suspects, who don't have the courage to confront him directly, so instead go behind his back to Forestry England and say things like, "Are you aware there's a man going into the forest carrying a spirit box? Do you want to do something about it?" It's typical passive-aggressive, what's it called, relational aggression. It's very effeminate, it's very cowardly, and it's what internet trolls do. Because as you know from my Watford experience, they cannot confront me directly. They're incapable of it. I don't know if there's a connection there with Gary, but there's no doubt that Gary, if you read through the Forestry England conditions for using the forest, and then you go through Gary's experience with getting approval for his tour, there is a discrepancy. Yeah, and maybe it's because something to do with Derek. Yeah, maybe. And finally, David Smith. David Smith has posted 4 videos, of which I've watched 2 3/4. And I lied a bit. I said I'd watched 3 of them. And I have good rebuttals for them. Now, these are videos from a channel called... Let's have a look. I'm not going to go through the videos because they're too long. Pardon me.
All the tables
okay.
arrived. Check.
But there's one called American Fascism and the Groomer Panic. And David Smith describes this as a debunking of anti-woke culture arguments. No, sorry. No, that is... Which one is it? Hang on. No, that is the first one, yeah. Let's have a look. Yes, it is. Let's go to share screen. No, I'm not going to go to share screen because I've got. There we go.
Already feeling the jackboot.
Yes, right. American Fascism and the Groomer Panic. It's by a channel called Second Thought, which I have actually subscribed to. And then there's another one called Why Some of Your Beliefs Support Fascism, and there's this one here. Okay, this is the second one. And this one is called Why American Fascism is on the Rise. Okay, so what I've done is I've watched those 2 and I've made some notes. Where are right? Okay, right. Firstly, the young man who presents these programs, makes several points, and I think David is suggesting that somehow I'm sort of like in this position. So, first of all, he tackles the idea that this connection between homosexuality and grooming. Right, I myself never... I want you to listen to me, David, and everyone else. I've never suggested that homosexuals are all grooming. I oppose unlawful violence against the gay community and LGBTQ people. I do believe that the drag queen story hour would be good adult entertainment. In the same way that drag shows, all across the East End of London are good adult entertainment. I don't believe anyone underage should be seeing them, though. I think I think no one should see underneath. Okay, then he comes up with this idea of the libs of TikTok. And then there's the libs of TikTok, which is a TikTok channel I have heard of and never watched, and know nothing about. Now, I actually don't, as I said before, the guy in the video actually makes a list of things that hospitals do when it comes to the trans issues, such as counselling, hormone therapy, and surgery for older people and stuff like that. I believe that this issue should be dealt with in the way Claire Ray Randall suggests in my interviews with her. Okay, if you watch those interviews, especially the first interview I did with Claire Ray Randall recently, or read her book, which I've got on my shelf somewhere. I agree with her model, and so I don't go along with the standard dissident right attitude towards trans people. Claire herself is a trans person; she's a trans woman. But I do believe that what the hospitals are doing is wrong, especially with children, but even young adults. I think is wrong. And I know you disagree with me on that, and we will disagree on that. But I know that a hospital was actually threatened with a firebomb attack, and I know that's wrong. I oppose that. I don't believe the idea of threatening anyone with unlawful violence is something I'm completely against. And so the idea that someone would threaten a hospital with firebombing, no, I think that's awful, and I agree that that's a terrible thing. Right, I believe that I'm aware that people of all sexual orientations can be paedophiles. I'm aware of that, and I don't go along with the idea that there's something particular about homosexuality that leads towards that. I don't believe all that. Now, when it comes to movies, I believe that misracializing characters in films is wrong, and I would say this if they remade Zulu and had white people playing the Zulus. I think that's wrong. Okay. That is something. I mean, it's not a major problem, because all we have to do is just not watch the films, and then the studio will then eventually go broke. I mean, this idea, they got woke and they didn't go broke. Millennial woes lamenting this. It appears that way because they're not suddenly all on the broad eye. But honestly, simple laws of economics. They will go if they don't recoup their costs, they're going to go broke. It's sure as up is down. And I think that we, in distant circles of all kinds, we sometimes project onto our enemies almost magical powers, omnipotence, all-knowing, all-powerful. It's not true. And I'm well aware of their limitations. Since 2016, I have been totally aware. And I'm concerned in this first video that it's also very polarised. You are either a wokist or you're a violent fascist. And if you don't believe in everything woke, then eventually, it's only a matter of time before you go down this pipeline towards fascism. I find it ironic, actually, that this wasn't in the video, I should point out. I find it ironic that woke pressure groups and sort of anti-fascist think tanks, they're actually saying that libertarianism is now a pipeline to fascism. And it's Godwin's law as well. They bring up the Nazis. It's always comparison to the Nazis. Godwin's law. Okay, so the second video. This is the one which David explains as why some of your beliefs support fascism. Well, I'm going to go into details about whether you think my beliefs support fascism or not in a moment. But right, I can't actually say it. The first month of the year, the 6th day, right? That was all staged. That was I've made entire videos about this, which have been banned from YouTube, and I've had to put them onto Old Tech. I made a couple of Old Tech exclusive about this. The doors were opened and they were allowed in for a photo opportunity. Okay, and the 17th letter and all that sort of thing. Again, I've made an entire video on Old Tech about that. Now, the thing is that now. There's another word I can't say. It's the great followed by a word beginning with R. What I'll do is I'll use a synonym, the great substitution. Right? Now you say it's a baseless conspiracy theory. However, there's no doubt it's happening. Now I want to stress that I don't actually believe what the distant right believes. I mean, the distant right will say things like, well, they just want white people out of the way. They want their new world order with no white people and everyone else is fine. Black people, Chinese, Jewish, Arabs, they're fine, but they just want white people out of the way. Okay, I don't believe that. I don't think the deep state Illuminati actually are any more well disposed towards non-white people than they are to white people. I think they hate all humans. I think they regard all humans of all colours as just one more species of farm animal. Okay? And I actually agreed with the last 3 minutes. It says here I agreed with the last 3 minutes. Okay, I don't remember what the last 3 minutes of this film was, and I'm not going to show it now. Okay, now he's also said here. He said how some of your beliefs you support are being pushed by big business. Now I don't know what this video. I've watched about 2/3 of it. I'll watch the rest another time. I don't have time to put in a full rebuttal to this. And there's this other video here, the fourth one I haven't watched. Current system propaganda. I think you might agree with this. All right, but I do agree with some of it. And I have subbed to that channel, David, so I'll watch the other videos. But let's just see. I want to ask you why you're always saying that some of my beliefs support fascism. What is fascism? Let's go to Wikipedia and start there, shall we? There's the Wikipedia page. All right. There's a picture of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. There's been other fascist societies like Spain, Greece. What is fascism? Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian and ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement. Authoritarianism. No, far-right just could mean anything. It just means anything to the right of Mao Zedong these days. Authoritarianism. Am I authoritarian? I don't think I am. I think I'm a libertarian. I'm the opposite, which makes it all the more ironic, as I said earlier, that the wokies are now saying that libertarianism is a pipeline to fascism. Okay, ultra-nationalist. I'm not ultra-nationalist. I'm patriotic. I do love my country, which is the definition of patriotism. But ultra-nationalism, I think, is when that love turns into some kind of bunny boiling obsession. I don't believe I'm that. I don't believe I'm as patriotic as that. Right, characterised by a dictatorial leader. Right. Well, unless it's me, I'm not interested. Centralised autocracy. That's not me. Militarism. Not me. I've actually spoken out against what I call the military religion. I've not made a video about that for a while, but I have done so. Forcible suppression of opposition. Right, I'm going to block David. Yes. I'm blocking David. I'm blocking Steve Mumbling. Yeah. If I'm into forced suppression of opposition, how much time have I spent in this video replying to you, David? Am I really trying to suppress your opposition? Okay. Belief in a natural social hierarchy. That is one thing I do believe in, actually. I think there is a natural social hierarchy. I believe in that. Subordination of individual interests. Well, no, I'm totally opposed to that. For the perceived good of the nation and race. And strong regimentation of society and economy. Okay, that is the definition of fascism. Of all those things listed, those points, there's about 10 points listed here. I only believe in one of them. Okay, how many do you have to believe in to be a fascist, David? Surely 1 out of 10 doesn't count. Okay, so that's YouTube done for now. We're just going to go on to BitChute. But David, I do appreciate you bringing me these things, and I will watch the rest of it soon. I've subbed to the channel. Okay, so BitChute. Let's go to uploads first, and then we will go through my list So I might get this inside 4 hours. I've got another half hour to go on this particular one. Okay, so reply to comments 82. If it's more than 4 hours, I'll make it a two-parter, as you know. Right. Reply to comments 82. No comments. Raza. Bad gateway, what? Okay, here we go. Right. Oh, what? Raza Vihari on Apollo UFOs and Tesla. Oh, there's loads of comments here. Sweet Fox. Okay. Right. Let's press pause. It automatically plays. But Sweeps Fox says, anyone as your guest, Ben, who casts doubts on the authenticity of the moon landings obviously is a sham artist. If people really want to actually see the landing sites, what's their footprints use? The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft launched in 2009 to study the moon, even show previous landing sites. By the way, the reason for the reflection on Buzz Aldrin's helmet of Armstrong was because Armstrong's character was on his chest taking pictures. Here's the orbiter video. Right, I'm aware of this, Sweeps, and as much as I respect you, this is something we're going to disagree on. The LRO, I believe, was faked. Jarrell White has done an entire video about that, which he describes it in detail. You see, if you look at the contours of the ground, you'll realise that even at chest height, the chest height where Armstrong was, doesn't match with the visor, the height of Aldrin's head. They're lining up with the horizon. But anyway, thanks for the comment sweeps. Anton McNamara is a long one here. Got a lot of comments on this one. The pace of technological development exceeds the rate at which gilded Masonic families can reposition their stock portfolios to profit from the new technologies. I think it's more. I don't blame Freemasons. It's more to it than that. It's not just about stock and profit. I think, Anton, it's about very, very strategic political control of the world. It's not just about profit and things. If it's he carries on. If it's a very specialist niche technology, they can gain control of it by dominating the IPO, initial public offering, which when shares start up and are first offers for sale. They can, Anton, but in this case it would very quickly get out of their hands because this is such revolutionary technology. It'd be like someone inventing a steam engine and then saying yes, but we're gonna license all the rights. With something as huge and basic as energy, they can't easily do this since it means foregoing their yeah, Anton, I'm sorry I didn't read all your comment first. I tend to take them apart, but you're actually now making the same point I did. Foregoing their long-standing reliable dividend yields from things like oil, gas, and more recently from infrastructure-dense renewables. If zero-point energy were made practical and available, these assets would quickly become worthless and have to be exchanged for an unknown asset which by its very nature will be less easily monopolised and less profitable. This accounts for its suppression and the murders of so many working on it. Correct, Anton. It's not just about profit, though. It is about, like I said, it's about... it's very political. It's very political at the end of the day about what's going on. So I'm short of breath there again because of my nose problem. So yeah, but you're quite right. Woden20, hey Woden, how's it going? Hope you're alright, mate. I'll just click a like on those. I don't believe Putin is their puppet. He's got in the way of their Syrian adventure and controls the oil today. If the cabal has anyone, it's already over, but Epstein and Savile haven't done them any favours. Brexit, Trump, refusals, no-V, passports set up, etc. They're trying to reignite the C word, but it's not gaining ground at this time. If anything, I'd say they are losing. Yes, I think so. I think they've been losing on and off since 2016, Woden. But the various things they're trying now, with this what could be fake UFO disclosure, they're attacking Trump, and the Epstein Savile thing again. That's still up in the air. Hunter Biden stuff's coming out in the news. Yeah, it's not over for them by any means. The Balladist says here. Oh right, this is the Balladist says here. Hi Ben, it's really time you re-uploaded your Zombie Protocol video from years ago here on BitChute. Here is a good reason if you've lost it. I'll find it for you. I downloaded it years ago. Let's have a look. Right, this is a BitChute channel restricted. Contains incitements to hatred. Oh right, I can't open that link, I'm afraid, Ballanist. But my Zombie Protocol video is actually on this channel. I don't know where. I mean, BitChute is notorious for searching problems. But I'll tell you what. Go to HPANWO-TV.blogspot.co.uk. And you can. All my videos are then listed in a very easily searchable format on Blogger. And I know that I uploaded it to this particular video. Okay. But if you wanted to re-upload it, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And I'm sorry it's been deleted. I mean, that's not like BitChute to delete things. Anyway, Woden20 said, I enjoyed that. The light biopsy was a bit comical. I take that with a pinch of salt. I'm an electrical engineer stroke electrician. They used a powered light switch to turn off on the lights, and past the antenna would be a new switch, illegal antenna, lol. I couldn't watch it, Woden, so I can't comment. And the Ballanist said, got it, to be honest. So much crap manufacturing is coming from China. I just thought they'd brought lots and lots of Duff's bulbs. But there's an interesting bit. Are the V-worded glowing under blue light? I'm not a fan of the Geordie towards the end. Alright, that's again about the video, I can't comment. But thank you for those comments, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Lots of comments on that video. Mysticism, a second reply to Stefan Molyneux. No comments. Oxford Graffiti 5. MPG3. MPG3 says, Banksy would be proud. Some of these works should be in art museums. I think the British have better artwork here than the USA, judging by most of these. Well, look, of course, we have a great tradition in art. I mean, there's good American artists too. But MPG3, you see, the problem with non-conformist folk art is that because it's painted on walls, eventually it's going to be obliterated. It'll be painted over, whitewashed, and eventually, of course, it does deteriorate due to atmospheric conditions as well. Therefore, in a sense, the art museum is this series of videos. So that's why I make them, as I explain in the video. Yeah. And finally, Mexico Aliens live stream. Vic Mortim says. Okay. Vic Mortim says here, V-Anti, what's it? V-Anti, being a secret society in itself, is able to penetrate deep into the world of other secret societies. It's recently uncovered a secret society operating in Britain called Year Zero. It has about a 40-year agenda and wants to ban every book published before the year 2008. Banish every book, every statue, every artwork, every icon. I've never heard of this, Vic Mortim. On the face of it, Year Zero seems to have no J in input. I can't say that word because of the H was before 2008, and it wants to ban all mention and references to the H, with some emphasis on the year 2008. H being the 8th letter of the alphabet, we initially thought it might be some kind of Hitler thing, but we could find no trace of anything neo-Nazi about them at all, apart from the sinister and totalitarian. We don't have any recent figures, but we estimate that in 2020 and 2021, Year Zero had a budget of $200 million value. We have no idea where they get all their money from, and few people seem to have ever heard of them. Yes, Vicky, including me. V-Anti suspects Year Zero is funded by China, but has no evidence of this at all. Confusingly, V-Anti has come across some tantalizing money trails leading from Silicon Valley, but again, the evidence is scant. Well, Vic, I'll look up at this, because this is a secret society I've never heard of. It sounds very Illuminati. It's entryism into other secret societies, for example. It sounds typical. Anyway, right, let's go to... I'm just going to go to the notifications list now. So those are scrolling down. This has improved actually in recent years. Right. Right. That's Sweeps Fox. I've replied to Sweeps. That's on his own video. I've replied to that. I'm writing an article on peat burning at the moment. Actually, apparently, the World Economic Forum wants to stop people burning peat because of its high. It's got, of all the fossil fuels, it has the highest carbon emissions, even though it's only burnt by a few thousand people in open fires. Unless there's a peat power station you're aware of. Down we go. Right, it always takes a while, but we'll get there. And that's it. Right, so no more replies. So I will do what I always do. Up to the top. Mark all as read. There we go. And delete all. There we go, delete all. Right. That is BitChute done. Now on to Odyssey. As always, uploads first. Actually, no, what I'll do is I'll go to... let me just go to notifications. I can go to notifications and select comments only, can't I? Okay. All up at comments. Here we go. Okay, reply to comments 82. Shelley of the Red says on reply to comments 82. Did you know Richard? Okay, this is all right. Some of them haven't turned up. On. Shelley of the Red says, who is Shelley Northwest. Did you know Richard D. Hall was posting here several channels and not speaking in comments but uploading again? He seems more open as well, at least not shutting comments off. Yes, I know he's got a couple of channels on here. I've actually subbed to at least one of them. We've seen he's banned from YouTube. And Shelley also says here, these campaigns about who you should and shouldn't date is straight out of the military ops. Yeah, it's disgusting, I think. on both sides, both the woke side and the other. One of the strongest releases of oxytocin in the brain is to see yourself mirrored externally, so your own tribe and culture and expressions. I mean, this is why people are naturally tribal, Shelley, which is one of the reasons why I don't think it's actually wrong for people to object to a completely homogenous society. You know, I've got no hostility to other tribes, but I do have my own tribe, who I'm very fond of, yeah. And Shelley of the Red says, "Oh my, Neil Sanders, no." Yeah, they have a right to their opinions. It's just bizarre flipping like that. Neil, yes, now... Oh, not spam. Shut up, spamming. I'm going to put a few extra comments on here. Okay, now what's funny is, if you've been studying the output of Neil and Brent Lee, Brent Lee, with his YouTube channel, has talked in great detail about his conversion from conspiratorialism, the truth movement, to skepticism and mainstream. He's talked about it in great detail, and I've talked about that before. I'm not angry with him over that. I don't get angry with people for their beliefs. I get angry with people because of their conduct. But, you know, for Neil on the other hand, has never stated, we have not heard the Neil Sanders "how I left the world of woo" narrative the way Brent has. So maybe I'll ask Neil about that. I might ask him. So I think, is that all the comments I've got? Let's have a look. I'll just double check here. It does appear to be, yes. The last one 20 days ago. Yeah, it looks like... Oh, Dark Corner said here... It's funny, I didn't see this. This was before. Alright, what's the comment? What's happened to the comment? Alright, someone said in the notifications. I didn't see this. But hi Ben, I've purchased. Let me just try and. Yeah, no. See, maybe it's disappeared. Hi Ben, I've purchased the book "A Madness Shared by Two," written by David Kahn and Sharon McKellen. Yeah, right. He's deleted the. I see. Dark Corners has deleted that comment, but it's still appearing in my feed. Right. Okay. So now on to Rumble. Rumble. Rumble, they've refused to delete. Do you know they've refused to delete Russell Brand? I'm very pleased about that. I'm not a fan of Russell Brand, but just because someone goes up to say, I think you should delete him because of A, B, and C, the government's MPs were writing to them. Right, reply to comments 82, no comments. But Russell, Rumble actually said, no, we're not deleting him just because a bunch of politicians want us to. YouTube caved in immediately, of course. Rasa Vihari, no comments. Oxford Graffiti 5. No comments. Mysticism, a second reply to Stefan Molyneux. No comments. Mexico Aliens livestream. No comments. But I do have a Rumble comment. I'll go to my notes. I now have one here. And where is it? Yes, child slavery on Mars. Okay, I'll find that. I'll actually go through all my Rumble comments here. Hang on. Okay, so I'll go to the HPANWO TV blog. Slavery. I should come up with a video. Child slavery on Mars. I've got a Rumble comment. Right, here we go. And it is here. If these last 3 weeks, if these last 3 years have shown me anything, it's that conspiracy theorists have proven to be more right than wrong. And you're absolutely right, defund mad science. That's a good name, isn't it? Defund. All right, I'll post that comment before. Okay. You're absolutely right, mad science. Defund mad science. That's a good name, defund mad science. And we have now Oh, so that's from 33 weeks ago. Why didn't I see it? We now have Libertarian 99. Okay, the bad thing about Rumble is they won't let you post the same video every time. They won't let you post the same comment more than once. So I have to just put random letters and comments. Oh, you're posting too fast. Oh, what's this? Okay. Libertarian. I remember watching that episode of Alex Jones live after Robert David Steele said that. Alex Jones ended the interview with Robert and told his audience directly that CIA agent Robert Steele did that deliberately to make the Alex show look kooky. Right, not surprised Alex said that. Now, I didn't see that bit, but it's the kind of things Alex would say because I could see him being very uncomfortable with the whole thing. I did. Anyway, Libertarian carries on. And then all the mainstream media lied and said Alex Jones said that child slavery rings on Mars. Right. The thing is, libertarian, what I question is it true or not? You know, I mean, Alex probably thought, well, this can't be true. He's saying it to make me look kooky. I would say first, well, is it true or not? I don't care if it makes me look kooky. Later on, Robert David Steele was on YouTube threatening legal lawsuits. It's kind of a tautology there, but anyway. Is there such thing as a non-legal lawsuit? To the few that had that 1 minute clip of him saying child slavery rings on Mars on the Alex Jones show, so he could get rid of the evidence, as he had been saying he didn't say it, but he did. It says a lot about Robert David Steele at the time. It said a lot. But I do believe they murdered him during his hospital C-word visit in 2021 to shut him up. Is he dead? I didn't know he was dead. Right, I didn't know also about the lawsuit to get rid of that video. If that's so, that's just it's very obviously very dishonest of him if he did that. Okay, I'm just going to go through Rumble notifications. Just checking I didn't miss any comments. That's on email. Right, the 9th of June. I've done that one. What's this? Oh, that's Charlie Ward replied to me. Yeah, I think it may have been him. I don't know. He's left me an email. Paul Metcalf. All right, I've replied to that one. That's the 30th of the 8th. When was my last comments reply video? Just so I don't want to reply to ones more than once. It was 3rd of September, right? Alright, here we go. Which finder? What's this? Oh, that was it's July. Right, 30th Rumble May. Okay, we're going back into May now. Yeah, I think that's all of it. Well, that's all of BitChute. That's all of Rumble done. That's all of Alt-Text. So now we're just going to go back. I'm now just going to go back to basically. I'm going to go back to notifications. I'm now going to look at any comments that might have appeared while I was making this video, which is almost 4 hours long. It's just going to be inside 4 hours. It's going to be a one-parter. Israel Diego Rivera to Genius. Israel Diego Rivera says, "Well done, Ben. You thoroughly This is on my Mexico Aliens live stream. You thoroughly covered the subject of fannies very well. Yes, I know. YouTube actually allowed me to do that. Let's keep the fanny jokes going, guys." And that I think is it. Yes, that's it. Right. Well, what can I say except once again, great show, everyone. Great. As a great comments reply video. It's longer than I expected. It's only from the beginning of the month, so it's actually standard. But it's much longer than I thought. And I know a lot of it's got to do with David Smith, but I don't mind that. I'm quite happy to reply to anyone's comments, however long they might be, except for Hillary Drinkwater. Sorry, Hillary. But anyway, of course, it's self-explanatory that this video would not happen without your comments. It's in the title, and so I want to thank each and every one of you for every comment you've made. They're really, really cool. Thank you very much. Next video coming up, I don't know. I've got a few things I want to do. Sorry, but I don't know. But I will try and do one sometime this coming week. All right. So that's the best I can promise. Maybe all right. Question. All right. Could you please comment below if you have read The Doomsday Conspiracy by Sidney Sheldon? Because I want to do a read party of that, and this is a book that has never been adapted into a film. So that's what I have planned. Maybe other reviews or maybe I'll do another introduction to another watch-read party. I've got an idea of something we could go into. Anyway, I'll think of something to do. If necessary, I'll just do a live stream and call it random live stream. Say whatever the fuck you like, or something like that. Anyway, thank you all of you for watching HPANWO TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.
Conspiracies, government cover-ups, Earth mysteries, monster cryptids, psyops, saucers and black triangles, HPANWO.